This video continues with Chapter 61, Escape Across the Infinite, A Kryptonian's Odyssey. Chapter 61, Escape. After all, the main task of these super soldiers is to monitor Tony Stark. Hundreds of them are just to keep an eye on him. And Tony Stark was told that they are terrorists, and terrorists do not need to rob him. Terrorists don't need to fight with others, right? In addition, the super soldiers have a dispensable attitude towards firearms and sometimes even load empty magazines into guns. It would be strange for Tony Stark not to notice these details. Yin-sen also had too many flaws. This second Yin-sen felt that he had changed the language. Tony Stark should not be able to learn a new language so quickly. However, he did not expect that Tony Stark would learn more quickly when he became serious. Even if Yin-sen didn't talk much, the occasional words were enough for Tony Stark to sort out the truth. Forget it. It doesn't matter if he ran away. I was going to let him go in the first place, Lucifer said. But you should just destroy him humanely. You can't even look down on a guy who has no fighting ability. It would be a waste to strengthen you into a super soldier. No, boss. The super soldiers panicked, but they were quickly packed away by people from the Umbrella Company's internal department. The people in this department all have Black Umbrella logos. They are the Black Umbrella, a department that specializes in handling various dark activities of the Umbrella Company, including the private trading of biological weapons. All employees are second-generation super soldiers. On the other side, after Tony Stark escaped, he used the steel suit and the physical fitness he had developed to successfully get out of Afghanistan and went to the U.S. military base in Afghanistan. The person in charge of the U.S. military base was confused when he saw him. Didn't it mean that Tony Stark had been missing for more than a year and was even confirmed dead? Help me find Colonel Rhodes quickly. Tony Stark passed out after saying that. When he woke up, he was already lying in a large hospital. Tony. Next to him was his good friend since childhood, Air Force Colonel James Rhodes, who was also one of the current military and Air Force war machine pilots. You have been missing for more than a year. Where have you been? Rhodes asked worriedly. Tony lamented that he hadn't seen her for more than a year, and it felt like a lifetime ago. He has matured and become different. After communicating with Rhodes and learning that Stark Industries had now become Obadiah's company, Tony Stark didn't think anything of it. Obadiah was still a good uncle to him. After Obadiah learned the news about Tony Stark's return, his face darkened, but he quickly calmed down and asked his secretary to prepare a car for him to visit Tony, who was undergoing examination in the hospital. Tony. Obadiah pushed open the door to the ward, and when he saw Tony, his expression that had been filled with tears for a long time froze. Because Tony Stark is not as weak as expected. On the contrary, his face is rosy, and his exposed upper body, chest muscles, abdominal muscles, biceps, and other muscles are clearly visible. You said Tony Stark was kidnapped and taken away. No one believed it for many years. After all, this is the fitness cell specially prepared by Lucifer for Tony Stark. He has to forge and beat steel every day. He eats 3 vegetarian meals and 1 meat meal, as well as a hard fiber meal every 2 days. It is very healthy. In order to prevent Tony from becoming dependent on caffeine and alcohol, Tony did not even drink coffee or wine. He could only drink various fruit juices and vegetable juices to detoxify and nourish his skin. Even his skin improved a lot. Because he got enough sleep, no nightlife, Tony Stark was full of energy and his eyes were bright. Obadiah. When Tony saw his relatives, he rolled over from the hospital bed so excitedly that Rhodes was stunned for a moment. He knew that Tony was very healthy now, but he didn't say that he was so flexible. Forget it. They have to do physical work for 12 hours a day, and then the super soldiers don't care about the food and have to go to the canteen to grab the food themselves. If they are a step too late, all the animals will eat it up. Lucifer told them that this would train Tony and he would not be cannibalistic if he skipped a meal. as long as he could eat breakfast to prevent him from getting gallstones. In this case, Tony Stark has developed the ability to flexibly climb over obstacles to ensure that he can eat. Because Obadiah was in a wheelchair, Tony could only give him a hug. "It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back." Obadiah patted Tony's back and felt his palm hurt from the slap. It was too strong. "By the way, Tony, while you were away, the police said you might be dead. In order to prevent Stark Industries from going bankrupt, Obadiah was worried that Tony would misunderstand and quickly wanted to explain the matter. After all, for a person like him, who felt that he judged others by himself, Tony must also value Stark Industries very much. No need to say this, it doesn't matter who owns Stark Industries. "By the way, I want to eat a cheeseburger, where's Happy?" Tony said nonchalantly. "Well, Happy has resigned after you've been missing for over a year," Obadiah said awkwardly. "What about Boss?" Tony was stunned for a moment, but he wasn't surprised. Then Tony Stark learned that Pepper Potts had jumped ship to the Umbrella Corporation. After all, Pepper Potts was too much, and Obadiah certainly didn't want Pepper Potts to know that he was smuggling Stark Industries weapons, so he hinted to others to exclude Pepper Potts. Pepper Potts was so angry that she went to Umbrella Corporation because Umbrella Corporation offered her an olive branch. After Pepper Potts left, Obadiah found a top management student who graduated from the same school as Pepper Potts. The most important thing was that she was hot and sexy. Although her ability was not as good as Pepper Potts, she knew how to behave and was sensible. Anyway, Stark Industries had been squeezed out of the leading position by Umbrella Corporation, and it didn't need someone as capable as Pepper Potts. "I'm going to find Potts and Happy back." After listening to this, Tony was silent for a while and then said, "Wait, Tony, I want to return Stark Industries to you." Before Obadiah finished speaking and asked the secretary to take out the contract, Tony Stark opened the door and walked out. "No need." He shook his head. Obadiah was left wondering whether Tony really didn't care or was just pretending to not care. The news of Tony Stark's return could not be concealed from the news media, and he had no intention of hiding it. Then, at the press conference, he directly announced the closure of Stark Industries' weapons department. But because he is no longer the president of Stark Industries, this announcement is invalid. Chapter 62 New World. "Why, Obadiah, why don't you support me in closing the weapons department?" Although Tony knew that the second Yinsen who took care of him was actually sent by the terrorists to closely monitor him, the first Yinsen was not. The weapons of Stark Industries posed too great a threat to civilians, so Tony had to close the weapons department and find the guy who smuggled the weapons. "Tony, you have to calm down. I am not the only one who has the final say in the company. If the weapons department is closed, the interests of many shareholders will be damaged, and the military will not agree to close the weapons department," Obadiah said helplessly, actually thinking that it was fortunate that Stark Industries was not returned to Tony. Who would have thought that Tony Stark would do such a trick as soon as he came back? "You have to know that Stark Industries has military shares. Closing the weapons department? Don't even think about it. Not to mention that Tony can't do anything now. Tony Stark will probably be able to build the arc-cold nuclear fusion reactor in a few months, and then he will be able to meet Iron Man, but he probably can't be considered Iron Man now." Lucifer was very satisfied with this, but his current focus is no longer on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is no need to go to the world of One Punch Man for the time being. The Monster Association has not yet come out. It would be a bit troublesome to pack up the Monster Association without alerting the Hero Association. It is better to wait until there are enough subordinates before going. Lucifer thought about it and then decided. After all, there is a suspected god behind the Monster Association as well as the mysterious Blaster and his group of teammates. No matter which one, Lucifer is very afraid. Even if he has reached level 7, he still has no confidence in winning. It should be good to go at least when he reaches level 8. At that time, unless the god is really ridiculously strong, Lucifer will be sure to kill it. Are you going to the new world? Lucifer was thinking that he had to find a way to make Esdeath immortal as soon as possible. Tyrant cells were not enough. Although this thing did not need to worry about combat effectiveness after injection, it obviously did not have the ability to maintain youth, but would evolve in the direction of adaptability. After all, it was a species of survival, so there was no need to consider attraction. So only by looking for as many worlds as possible could we find a way to make Esdeath immortal. Then Lucifer suddenly appeared in a noisy tavern. Of course, with the appearance of Lucifer, the whole tavern suddenly became quiet. Everyone's eyes turned to Lucifer, who suddenly appeared. After all, this guy suddenly appeared, and anyone would be surprised, right? Lucifer was also stunned when he saw this situation. He did not expect that he would appear here. There were basically no people in the places where he appeared before, but he did not expect that he would be thrown into such a lively place this time. Isn't this embarrassing? So the people on both sides began to stare at each other. After a stalemate for a while, a drinker suddenly shifted his gaze and continued to drink with the person next to him. Perhaps taking him as an example, the people around him quickly recovered and continued to do what they were supposed to do. The whole tavern became lively again. Lucifer was also a little surprised. He was still wondering what to do now. As a result, these people quickly accepted his sudden appearance and continued to take care of him. This was a bit strange. After thinking about it, Lucifer realized one thing, that is, his sudden appearance was not very difficult for these people to understand. In other words, the existence of similar superpowers in this world is commonplace and not so rare. His sudden appearance did startle everyone, but it was just a surprise. After coming to their senses, everyone was too lazy to care about him. It looks like a backward Middle Ages. It won't be Pirates of the Caribbean or Ragnarok. Lucifer walked out of the tavern. From what he saw so far, this place was a bit like the Middle Ages. Everyone's clothes revealed some ancient style, but there were also a few people who were dressed particularly strangely. Of course, because Lucifer had seen and played too many similar games, Lucifer was not very clear about where this place was. Lucifer flew into the sky, causing everyone to exclaim. Behind him and in the distance were dense forests. In the distance, you can see endless mountains, shrouded in mist, exuding a mysterious and dangerous atmosphere. Above his head was the incomparably blue sky, and the air was filled with coldness. The surrounding temperature was obviously not low. Boom! At this moment, a roar like thunder came from the distant mountain range covered by mist and covered with snow. Lucifer looked over there at the first moment, faster than thunder. Almost the next second after the lightning and thunder, he turned his head to look over there. In just a few seconds, that place was covered by a terrible blizzard. The original thunder-like sound continued to sound, and it sounded a bit like a huge human voice. Then Lucifer flew over. Even though that place seemed far away, for Lucifer, who could fly hundreds of times the speed of sound, this distance was reached in the blink of an eye, right? It really contains some special power, Lucifer said. He could feel that the blizzard around him had a little bit of damage to him, but it was very weak. It contains something special, a power that cannot be immune. Huh. After a long time, the blizzard in the sky dissipated, and a group of people who looked quite embarrassed walked down the mountain path. This is a rather strange combination. There are 9 people in total, all male, but there are big differences in their figures and appearances. 5 of them are very short, much shorter than the others, but they are not children. 4 of them are barefoot, and their feet are much bigger than those of ordinary people. They look like they are wearing a pair of shoes that look like feet. The other one has a long golden brown beard. Obviously, these shoes are not from humans, but from another race. The other few people, 2 humans, one looks like a knight and the other is dressed as a ranger. A handsome elf with blonde hair and long ears. The last one is an extremely tall old man, wearing a gray robe, white beard and white hair, holding a wooden staff in his hand. Although the dress looks like a spellcaster such as a wizard or a mage. But the first time Lucifer saw him, he felt that this old man was very good at fighting. He was not good at using magic or witchcraft, but he was very good at physical combat. Chapter 63 Dried Tofu. When Lucifer saw this group of people, these people naturally saw Lucifer. In their eyes, this person with strange clothes did not look like a person from Middle-earth. The people who had just been attacked were naturally extremely vigilant. Accompanied by a sound, various weapons were already in hand. The gray-robed wizard did not disappoint Lucifer's expectations and drew a sword without hesitation. The atmosphere on the field instantly became tense and solemn. Several barefoot dwarves stood at the back, looking very nervous and trembling. "Suddenly I know what kind of world this is," Lucifer complained. "The famous Magneto, no, it's Gandalf, the dual-wielding berserker." Gandalf is the first berserker in Middle-earth, the spiritual mentor of melee mages, the first person to play the pig and eat the tiger, tearing the fire demon with his hands and punching the white robe, being both civil and martial, smoking, drinking, and perming his hair. "Don't be nervous, I have no ill intentions." Lucifer thought about it and said to them, "Who are you?" The old gray-robed wizard stepped forward and asked Lucifer, his voice full of energy. It can be imagined that there is an extremely strong body hidden under the gray robe. "Me? Probably someone from another world." "In your words, I am the Maya from another world." Lucifer thought for a while and said, "Maya from another world. In the Middle-earth world, there is a creator god. Elves and humans are all children of God. Elves are the eldest sons of God, and humans are the second sons of God. In order to ensure the normal development of the world, God sent 5 wizards to Middle-earth. They will guide the creatures of Middle-earth, and Gandalf is one of them. Moreover, he is the kind that is favored by the big leaders, that is, he came down to guild. These wizards are not humans, nor elves, but Maya. They are subordinates of the Valor, just like angels serving God, but they are active in human skin. Therefore, even if this body dies, they may change skin and continue to move down in the future. However, after Lucifer saw Magneto Gandalf and the elf prince Legolas played by Luzikai, he knew that this was probably the movie version of The Lord of the Rings, so it was fine. There was no need to worry about the boss behind Maya intervening. If it was the original version, Lucifer would run away without saying a word. In fact, the prequel to the world of The Lord of the Rings once had a very glorious mythological history. Starting from the Song of Creation, everything was fabricated by the supreme god and other high-ranking gods in that world. If there was a little change, they would not do it. It is not certain whether Lucifer's current strength can beat the highest demon Morgoth in the mythological era. His participation as a Kryptonian will definitely destroy the plot and the settings of the Valor, so he may be targeted. It is much better now, just the movie version. Even if Sauron gets the Supreme Ring and resurrects, Lucifer can kill it without a breath. Although Sauron only goes back even if he dies, he probably can't continue. This is a world with an overall level of productivity equivalent to that of medieval Europe. In addition to humans, there are all kinds of magical fantasy races such as elves, dwarves, hobbits, orcs, and tree people. There are also magical animals such as dragons, giant wolves, giant spiders, giant eagles, etc., which feel perfunctory. After all, these monsters are just enlarged in proportion. Even if the giant eagle and the giant wolf have special abilities such as magic, Lucifer does not feel how strong they are. And this world is not an ordinary world. There used to be some extremely powerful extraordinary beings, which can be called gods. But as time goes by, the gods have withdrawn from the stage. At least on Middle-earth, the real ruler is no longer the gods. The active ones have been replaced by races such as humans, dwarves, and elves, and there is also a younger brother who is still working tirelessly after the big brother has withdrawn from the stage. The younger brother named Sauron is currently the big boss of Middle-earth, the biggest evil existence. The group of people in front of them is the Fellowship of the Ring. The team formed to destroy Sauron. Although this world has powerful extraordinary powers, this obviously cannot cover up that its overall productivity is only at the level of medieval Europe. There are indeed extraordinary powers in Middle-earth. But this extraordinary power is only in the hands of a few people, and it is very mysterious and quite stream of consciousness, so it is basically impossible to popularize it. People like Legolas and Aragorn in the Fellowship of the Ring can be regarded as super elites and top combat forces. They are powerful and can even fight 1 against 100. But they cannot master the extraordinary power like Gandalf and Saruman. The blizzard in the Misty Mountains was caused by Saruman taking advantage of the environment. A minority. Only a few people have such extraordinary power. The mission of the Fellowship of the Ring is to kill Sauron and his orc army and completely end his ambition in Middle-earth. Yes, it is just an ambition, which has never been realized. Sauron seems to always appear as a boss, and people in Middle-earth are terrified when talking about him. But this guy's experience is actually quite miserable. In 1200 of the 2nd century, Sauron appeared in a place called Eregion as the gifted Master Annatar. Celebrimbor, the Lord of Eregion, was deceived by Sauron and forged 19 ruling rings, 3 rings for the elves, 7 rings for the dwarves, and 9 rings for men. In 1600, Sauron secretly forged the Supreme Ring to control the other ruling rings. In the end, Sauron used the 9 rings of men to control 9 of the most powerful people among humans, and made them degenerate into a kind of creature similar to the undead, the Ringwraiths. In the year 3429 of the Second Age, it was probably Sauron's most glorious moment. He called the wind and rain in Middle-earth, and humans and elves formed an alliance because of Sauron's pressure. Then Sauron's finger with the ring was cut off, the ring was taken away, and his body disappeared. Then, most importantly, the ring that almost represented Sauron's existence disappeared without a trace. Later, Sauron came out again as a necromancer and established Dol Guldur, wanting to make trouble. At the beginning, it did cause some people to panic. However, in the end, he didn't even have time to pretend. He was pinned to the ground and beaten by Saruman the White, one of the 5 wizards specially sent to Middle-earth by the Maiar, a special race with no fixed form. Some appear in human form. Poor Sauron could only flee back to his lair, Mordor. He shouted every day, "I don't accept it. I want to conquer Middle-earth. If you have the ability, give me the ring back, and I will kill you after I get the equipment." Chapter 64, Saruman. However, due to the loss of the One Ring, Sauron's power was severely weakened. He could only transform into an eye and spy on Middle-earth every day. So far, Sauron was forced to become a dead house. Conquests and such can only be thought of for the time being. Although Sauron is a poor guy, he is at least a poor guy who was once awesome. People in Middle-earth all think that it is not a big deal for the eye of Sauron to look around everywhere. The privacy rights of people in Middle-earth have been destroyed, okay? And what if one day it comes back? So, when the missing One Ring was obtained by the hobbit Frodo, the grey-robed wizard Gandalf, who was originally responsible for fighting Sauron and was also one of the Maiar, appeared in front of him. He asked Frodo to take the ring to the territory of the elves, Rivendell. There, a group of people, elves, humans, and dwarves held a meeting. Finally, it was decided that Frodo and his team would take the ring to Mount Doom, the place where the ring was made, and the only place in the legend that could destroy the ring and completely kill Sauron. Destroy the ring and completely eliminate Sauron, the hidden danger. They took on the task of entering Mordor and destroying the Supreme Ring. Because the Supreme Ring contains the power of Sauron, it will corrupt the soul and make the holder fall. Therefore, The innocent hobbit Frodo also became the only holder of the ring. Others are very likely to be affected by the ring and fall. In history, the only person who could truly resist the power of the ring and voluntarily give it up was Bilbo Baggins, who inherited the ring to his cousin Frodo. Now the ring is kept by Frodo. These people originally planned to cross the Misty Mountains. But because the original White Wizard Saruman fell, he joined Sauron and cooperated with him. In order to stop the Ring team, he used his power to cause a blizzard in the Misty Mountains and collapsed the road. The Fellowship of the Ring can only return and find a way to Mordor again. Lucifer is very interested in the Supreme Ring, especially the special existence of the Ringwraiths. The 3 rings of the elves have the ability to control the elements, and the 9 rings of humans are immortal. Even if it is only the immortality of the movie version, not the original version, it is still very powerful. Maya from other worlds, what are you doing in this world? Gandalf asked Lucifer. Oh, nothing, I just came to travel. Lucifer was not interested in Gandalf and his group, but wanted to catch dragons, giant spiders, giant eagles and giant wolves to study them, and by the way, kidnap Saruman, the technology expert. What a good Maya, studying technology, developing biotechnology, and improving the species of orcs. He and Kinos should have a lot in common, one mysterious side, and the other I think maybe he can help Lucifer mass-produce dragon-level monsters faster. So Lucifer left directly. The Fellowship of the Ring looked at each other and then said nothing. They were going to change their route next. Lucifer flew towards a place called Isengard. It was a place abandoned by Gondor, and was turned into an important defense of the free lands in the west by the former white-robed wizard Saruman. Now Saruman has fallen, and he calls himself Saruman of the Colored Robe. Isengard is now naturally occupied by the new race created by Saruman, the orcs who are not afraid of the sun. Isengard is Saruman's lair, which is easy to defend and difficult to attack, and is occupied by a large number of orcs. It has become another evil place in Middle-earth after Mordor. It is naturally not a simple thing to enter such a place, and you need to pass many levels. The difficulty is not much lower than entering Mordor. However, the so-called difficulty is naturally only for the locals in Middle-earth. For Lucifer, this place is undefended. He cut through the sky and appeared near the Tower of Isengard. This is Saruman's residence and his laboratory. Before Saruman could react and fight back, Lucifer landed on the Tower of Isengard. All this happened so fast that Saruman's magical voice didn't even have time to sound. The surrounding anti-aircraft defenses, which were really not very good, didn't have time to be used. The last time the power of the Wind King, the leader of the giant eagle Gandalf, escaped from Isengard, Saruman strengthened Isengard's defense against air strikes. He was very confident that the next time a giant eagle flew over, it would definitely not leave as easily as last time. Unexpectedly, it was not a giant eagle that came this time, but a Kryptonian. Lucifer was able to find this place thanks to his supervision and super hearing. Now he can observe a large range, and the speed at which the super brain processes information is much faster than before, so he can fly straight here. The sound of the horn sounded from the Tower of Isengard. The intruder landed on the tower in a swagger, and the whole of Isengard was shaken. If this gets out, where will Saruman's face be? Is Saruman here? Lucifer asked. Behind him, a huge feather arrow or crossbow arrow as thick as an adult's arm shot straight at him. Lucifer turned around and grabbed the arrow. Then he threw it back. As soon as the arrow left his hand, there was a loud bang, and the mock ring whizzed out, instantly separating hundreds of orcs and drawing a bloody line between them. Countless pieces of debris fell, and blood flowed like a river. A simple and powerful voice suddenly came from the tower. A simple syllable, not a special word. The sound of the horn stopped after the syllable, and the orcs who had started howling and preparing for battle gradually quieted down. About half a minute later, a gray-black-skinned orc came to Lucifer. The master invites you to come over. The orc growled and made an unclear sound, looking at Lucifer cruelly. He didn't know how Lucifer did it just now, but he was very strong. Lead the way. After Lucifer showed his strength a little, he knew that Saruman would definitely not sit still. Soon, the orcs took Lucifer to the room where Saruman was in the tower. Saruman was an old man with white hair and beard, holding a black wand with a round gem on the top. Compared with Gandalf, this man was tall, but he looked thin and his cheeks were a little sunken. His overall image is obviously more in line with the feeling of a normal wizard. Who are you? Saruman looked at Lucifer and asked his own question. Saruman is a very scientifically literate person. His technological level is also top-notch in Middle-earth. He not only created the orcs, he is also proficient in machinery and chemistry, and invented explosives using fire and gravel. Chapter 65, The One Ring. He can be regarded as a scientific pioneer in Middle-earth. If Saruman succeeds and eventually rules Middle-earth, he may be called Saruman the Great in the future. It doesn't matter who I am, Saruman. Are you willing to continue like this? Lucifer looked at Saruman and said, What's the meaning? Saruman had no idea what Lucifer was talking about. Middle-earth is not for you, come with me, Lucifer said. After abducting Saruman, he still had to go see the Balrog. He didn't know how much experience he would get if he killed the Balrog. After all, it was also a type of Maya. Of course, it is also possible that after killing him, the big boss would personally kick him out as a walk-on. You're just a psychic, trying to steal Tofu's role, so get out of here. Follow you? Saruman asked if he could speak clearly. So Lucifer confessed at this time that he came from a world outside Middle-earth and did not belong to the Valor. He could also be considered to be the Valor and Maya of other worlds. Only then did Saruman realize why Lucifer looked so unique. Valor and Maya from other worlds. Saruman could feel Lucifer's power, as powerful as a dragon's vitality and aura, especially the hand he just showed, catching the arrows coming from behind and then counterattacking, killing hundreds of strong orcs. Compared with Sauron is much weaker than this kind of power. What can you give me? Saruman asked meaningfully. I can give you whatever you want, your favorite research, even the Supreme Lord of the Rings. Lucifer said to Saruman. The One Ring? Saruman was a little surprised. Although he also liked the study, he liked the Supreme Lord of the Rings more. Then what do you need from me? Asked Saruman. Everything from you. I need your magic and your knowledge, and I need you to forge the One Ring for me. Lucifer found a way to make Esdeath immortal, which was to forge a new Supreme Lord of the Rings, a new Supreme Lord of the Rings with the 3 elven rings, the 7 dwarf rings and the 9 human rings, as well as the capabilities of the Supreme Lord of the Rings. The 3 rings of elves, the 7 rings of dwarves, and the 9 rings of men. Together with the Supreme Lord of the Rings made by Sauron, they are all the Lord of the Rings in Middle-earth, forming a complete Lord of the Rings system. The 7 rings of the dwarves had basically been taken back and destroyed by Sauron, while the 9 rings of humans were in the hands of the 9 ring spirits and became Sauron's tool to enslave them. The 3 elven rings are the water ring Nanya, the air ring Vilya, and the fire ring Nea, in the hands of 2 elves and Gandalf respectively. No matter which magic ring, it is difficult to obtain. As for their abilities and effects, the elves are immortal, flexible, not proud of their bodies, and dominate with magic. So there are 3 rings, which give the power to manipulate the elements more easily. A dwarf who likes blacksmithing has a long lifespan and does not care about appearance. He has no magical talent. What he is given is strength, extremely powerful physical strength. Human beings pursue immortality, so the increase in strength is minimal. Human rings are also the easiest to wear. The most powerful thing about the ring is that it can lead a group of people. Wearing this ring means you are invincible within your tribe, basically. For foreign enemies, you still have to look at the rings of elves and dwarves. The human ones are more like those used to show off their cuteness. So the human race has the most rings, but it doesn't have the most increase in strength. The dwarves have 7, but the strength of a single one has increased to a terrifying degree, although there are only 3 elves. However, the most powerful thing about elven magic is not its power, but its knowledge and skills. And these 3 rings can make up for their shortcomings. Therefore, humans and elves satisfy their desires and shortcomings respectively. Dwarves enhance their strongest point. The Nazgul are almost all humans. Dwarves and elves, although tempting, are not that tragic. The human race's ring provides immortality, but the increase is not large, in order to stabilize the entire situation. That's impossible. After hearing Lucifer's words, Saruman said immediately. Saruman imitated the manufacturing process of the Lord of the Rings and made a ring for himself, which enhanced his power. But what Lucifer said was to forge a new Lord of the Rings. This is not something that can be done casually. The Lord of the Rings was made by Celebrimbor, a famous craftsman among the elves, but he was from the 2nd century and died in the hands of Sauron long ago. Now in the entire Middle-earth, there is only one person who knows the forging process of the Lord of the Rings. That is Sauron the Great Eye in the Tower of Barad-dûr in Mordor. I cannot forge the Lord of the Rings. I can only forge a ring that is close to the Lord of the Rings. Saruman said truthfully. His ring is comparable to the power of the 3 elven rings, close, but only close and comparable. Not to mention forging the one ring that can rule all the rings. Talion, a human ranger. Lucifer said a name that was unfamiliar to Saruman. If he is still in Middle-earth, find his whereabouts. Don't you need the ring? Saruman asked. It's been made so clear, you still don't understand? Lucifer glanced at Saruman and said. Saruman's breathing became slightly faster. You mean, he can forge the ring? Celebrimbor, Lucifer said, the forger of the ring. After being killed by Sauron, his soul did not die and possessed a dead ranger. The 2 had revenged Sauron. If you find them, it is equivalent to getting the forging method of the ring. Saruman's expression was a little frozen. He didn't expect Lucifer to throw out such important news lightly. How about it? I am very sincere. As long as you agree, then I will take you away from this world. Lucifer said with a smile. It was difficult for Saruman to refuse his bargaining chip because he was ambitious, unlike Gandalf. I know, I will find the ranger as soon as possible. Saruman's eyes flickered. That was the Supreme Ring, but he didn't know that Lucifer planned to wholesale the Supreme Ring. At that time, by imitating Sauron's operation, he would inject his own consciousness and power into it to control those who wore the Supreme Ring. What is the Supreme Ring? What he has above is the Emperor Ring. Lucifer left without wasting time, and brought back a few orcs for Kinos to study. Kinos was full of expectations for this creature that was said to come from the magical world, and couldn't wait to study it after getting it. It might become very miserable when Lucifer returned to the world of the Lord of the Rings. The orcs that Saruman sent out to find Talion had brought him back. Chapter 66, The New One Ring. I have found Talion and brought him back, but I can't make him speak, Saruman said when he saw Lucifer. Saruman himself is actually an expert inquirer. In addition to occupying Isengard, he even bewitched the ruler of another human kingdom, Rohan Theoden. He originally thought that as long as he found the ranger, it would be very easy to ask him about the method of making the ring. But Saruman forgot that Talion was already dead. The reason he survived is that he shared a body with another soul. The other soul, the original creator of the ring, the elf Celebrimbor, was an old immortal who existed in the Second Age. He possessed Talion in the form of a soul and fought against Sauron with him. I don't know how many years have passed so far. It is too difficult for Saruman to pry open the mouth of such an old monster. The other party even had means of self-destruction, which made Saruman afraid to take extreme measures, so he could only imprison him and Talion temporarily. Lead the way, Lucifer said to Saruman. Saruman had no way, but that didn't mean he had no way. Saruman looked at Lucifer deeply and took him down the tower. The two walked down the stairs to the basement cell under the tower. Saruman once imprisoned Gandalf on the tower, just a small platform, with a biting cold wind, high altitude on all sides, and no way to go down. As a result, the Wind King took advantage of the opportunity and rescued Gandalf very easily. Now Saruman has learned his lesson and started to imprison people in underground cells to prevent them from escaping. Talion's hands and feet were tied with heavy chains, half kneeling on the ground. Hands raised high, showing a posture that was almost hanging. There were some wounds on his body and some blood on the ground. His head was lowered, and his hair covered his face. It was hard to tell what he was like at the moment, but he had obviously been called by Saruman. "Do you want revenge?" Lucifer said to Talion, or rather, to the soul in his body. "What?" Talion immediately raised his head. "I said, I will help you get revenge. As long as you help me forge the One Ring, I will help you get revenge and kill Sauron." Lucifer said righteously. "How can we believe you?" The soul elf Celebrimbor asked calmly. "Sauron has lost the One Ring, and the Fellowship of the Ring is taking the One Ring to the volcano to completely destroy it. It will be very easy to kill Sauron at that time. Moreover, I'm the Valor and Maya of other worlds, so there is no need to worry that I can't kill Sauron." Lucifer gave a convincing statement. "What about Saruman?" The elf Celebrimbor was shaken, but still asked. "He has become my subordinate. He will follow me to leave Middle-earth and go to other worlds. He is no longer a minion of Sauron." Lucifer said. "I was never a minion of Sauron," Saruman said immediately. The elf Celebrimbor ignored him. "Then after you kill Sauron, I will help you forge the One Ring." "No, I need you to forge the One Ring before I can kill Sauron. Do you understand?" Lucifer shook his head and said. The elves Celebrimbor and Talion were silent. I don't know if they were secretly discussing something. In the end, they agreed. "The One Ring I want needs to have the effects of the 9 rings of humans, the 3 rings of elves, the 7 rings of dwarves, and the One Ring." "Can you do it?" Lucifer asked. "Yes, but in this way, a lot of gold will be consumed, and the power of Sauron is needed to forge the One Ring. In addition to Sauron's power, can you find a power as powerful as Sauron to forge it?" The elf Celebrimbor has actually mastered Sauron's method of making the ring and the One Ring through exploration over the years. Lucifer's request is just to improve the technical level. "No problem, just use my power. My power should be stronger than Sauron," Lucifer said seriously. The elf Celebrimbor nodded. Since Lucifer said that he was the Valor and Maya from other worlds, he was probably stronger than Sauron. I just don't know if it's appropriate. And gold is even less of a problem for Lucifer. He will go back to the Marvel world and bring a lot of gold. These are all the gold from the shipwreck, and the amount is huge. The elf Celebrimbor was also stunned. He didn't expect to see so much gold. The project of forging the Supreme Ring began soon. Saruman asked the strong orcs to assist. The elf Celebrimbor gave instructions, and Lucifer was responsible for the transmission of power. In fact, Lucifer didn't know whether his pure physical strength could be considered as power, but it seemed that the elf Celebrimbor said it could be used, so there was no problem. Consciousness, mind, spirit, soul, will, these things flowed into the ring along with the forging. In the end, a large amount of gold disappeared and a shining, golden ring appeared. "This is the Supreme Ring, the new Supreme Ring." The elves Celebrimbor and Talion said breathlessly that although they didn't need to do the physical work, guiding Lucifer's overpowering power was more troublesome and difficult than they had imagined. This was still the case with Lucifer's cooperation. It can make people immortal, invisible, or ethereal. Part of the body can enter the underworld to avoid attacks and will not be affected by the underworld. It also has the ability to strengthen the wearer's power. The elf Celebrimbor continued. Lucifer put on the supreme ring, which made Saruman look forward to it. He really wanted a supreme ring. Lucifer could feel the supreme rings strengthening on him, but it was just average. Of course, it would be good to give Lucifer the ability to control elements. Who hasn't dreamed of having magic? I have memorized the specific process, Lucifer said to the elf Celebrimbor. As for killing Sauron, that's no problem. I'll bring the army to deal with Sauron's orc army, and then let Gandalf and his men march straight in. For Lucifer, the army naturally couldn't follow his orders, so he could only hand it over to the human Emperor Strider to command. Anyway, he already had an invincible ghost army, not to mention an alien army, right? Afterwards, Lucifer took Saruman away from the world of the Lord of the Rings, leaving him to Kynos, who had a common language with him, and took the supreme ring to the world of slashing scarlet eyes. Chapter 67, Rampage. Cut off the red eyes. The Empire now controls a territory far beyond the original plot, has come into contact with island countries, and fights with the Western kingdoms every day. Esdeath sat and fiddled with a pen in boredom. Because of her excessive desire to reproduce, Esdeath had a 5 million-word life and death duel with Lucifer, a Kryptonian, and now she has entered a rational state. However, because these 5 million words are full of shocks and unforgettable life and death battles, Esdeath now has no interest in torture. She has become very Buddhist. Maybe only Lucifer's return can make her happy. Feel surprised and excited. It was the kind of excitement that only Lucifer could give her. Esdeath. Lucifer appeared outside, and Esther's eyes suddenly lit up. Elbow, come into the house with me. Esdeath grabbed Lucifer's hand and pulled him into the house. Wait, Esdeath, I have something serious to ask you. Lucifer was stunned for a moment, then reacted and spoke hurriedly, probably because he was afraid of hurting Esdeath's fragile body and bones. So he didn't dare to take action. Business, who is the business? Huh? In just 2 sentences, Lucifer was confused. When he came to his senses, 30,000 words had passed. Of course, this is 30,000 words led by Esdeath, and the 3 million words led by Lucifer have just begun 310,000 word. Esdeath, this is a belated ring that symbolizes our love. Wear it and you will be immortal. Lucifer sat on the edge of the bed and said gently to Esdeath, who was already a puddle of mud. Facts have proved that even though Esdeath has been very strong, she is still not good enough in front of Lucifer. Not only will the biological force field make Esdeath more and more sensitive, but it will also not make her dehydrated too seriously. After all, she is sensitive. If the temperature increases, it is easy to become dehydrated. Esdeath raised his head with difficulty and saw the appearance of the Supreme Lord of the Rings. What does the ring represent? She didn't quite understand, so she rested her head on Lucifer's lap, forming a knee pillow. It represents the meaning of marriage. Lucifer thought for a while. In fact, he seemed to really not know the meaning of the ring. There seemed to be no tradition of rings in China. In the past, they were at most a pair of dragon and phoenix bracelets made of gold. By the way, should I use dragon and phoenix bracelets instead? Maybe the effect will be better than that of the Supreme Lord of the Rings. The Supreme Lord of the Rings is too small and certainly not as big as the dragon and phoenix bracelet Mary. Esdeath thought thoughtfully. She naturally understood this, but she didn't expect that she would marry Lucifer. Mainly because she didn't feel this way. For Esdeath, the law of the jungle was conquered by Lucifer. It's a normal thing, love. She hasn't reached the stage of wanting love yet. But now, it is impossible for Esdeath to leave Lucifer. She feels that she has been conquered by Lucifer. Lucifer then took Esdeath to the Marvel world. There was no reason why he placed Esdeath in the world of red eyes. It was just that Lucifer wanted to preserve Esdeath's youth. It just went by so fast. This is your world, Master? Esdeath asked Lucifer thoughtfully after seeing the high-rise buildings and the endless desert outside. It is, but it is not my world. My world is still far away, but I will go back one day," Lucifer said calmly, and then he heard a huge movement below. "What's going on?" Lucifer asked. Esdeath was startled, and then he saw a flash of light around him, and a 3D projection appeared in front of him and Esdeath. 10 minutes ago, Dr. Genos and Dr. Saruman conducted research and successfully created a monster larger than a dragon, but the target cannot be contained. The Black Emperor replied calmly. Above dragon? Lucifer suddenly realized something. So he quickly headed to the laboratory, and Esdeath naturally followed. Impossible, how could magic fail? Saruman thought hard. Even if the monster in front of him was about to be killed, all the beast soldiers who went to stop it were killed by it. Genos ran away and let the Black Emperor deal with it roar. The monster was like one-eyed Piccolo, and when he raised his hand, he released an energy wave, and the vibranium wall responsible for resisting it quickly disintegrated. Even Captain America's shield has an upper limit and can be chopped down by Thanos, let alone these walls that are just vibranium. Seeing that Saruman was about to be killed by the monster before he could escape, a figure blocked the monster. Vaccine human cells. Lucifer looked with interest at the weirdo who was knocked out by him but was still intact. The research conducted by Genos and Saruman was very simple. They originally just wanted to restore Burroughs, but unexpectedly, after adding the cells of the vaccine man, they instantly created this monster as if they were out of control. What's more, the reason why Genos used Super Biceps King is because Genos discovered that Super Biceps King is a very good nutrient solution. Ordinary clones naturally don't need Super Biceps, the king of head muscles, but it is needed to transform the living body, and it will accelerate maturity. The huge energy was completely absorbed, and the energy index instantly soared above the dragon level, which means it exceeded the dragon level standard. However, because there has never been a god-level weirdo, the god-level standard cannot be found. Otherwise, they can all be called god-level weirdos. Mr. Lucifer, this weirdo's data is 19.9% higher than Burroughs. Genos also rushed over at this time, and then said to Lucifer, "Well, I feel it." After all, Lucifer had a head-on confrontation with it, using the power to kill Burroughs, but the opponent remained intact. The cells of the vaccine man are still very good, but it's a pity that this is not the world of One Punch Man, and you will not be recognized by the will of the earth. Lucifer looked at the weirdo opposite and said, "It looks like a combination of Vaccine Man and Burroughs, except that Burroughs' hair is gone and replaced by Vaccine Man's head, and then Vaccine Man's face is gone and replaced by Burroughs' one eye and face. The ultimate suture is weird." Then Lucifer disappeared instantly, and when he reappeared, he caught the weirdo and teleported with him to the world of One Punch Man. Boom! The weirdo roared and punched Lucifer on the arm. The shockwave destroyed the valley behind Lucifer, and a huge crack opened on the ground, like the Great Rift Valley in East Africa. "You've become stronger. Are you connected to the will of the earth so quickly?" Lucifer joked that the gap between a 7th-level Kryptonian and a 6th-level Kryptonian is too big. They can be killed with one punch, and the 6th-level Kryptonian is stronger than Burroughs. So the difference between Lucifer and this weirdo is the gap between them is still huge. Chapter 68. Continuing the New World. Therefore, scientists are very powerful. They can create such powerful monsters in one go, and they can easily destroy the world. Lucifer was very happy at this time, because he could just use this one-eyed vaccine man to test his upgraded power. The one-eyed vaccine man himself is a representative of the planet created according to the will of the earth. After getting the theme material of Burroughs at this time, he quickly transformed into an evolution based on Burroughs, making Lucifer feel the speed at which the opponent is getting stronger the more he fights. Too fast. Although the vaccine man was constantly getting stronger and evolving, the speed was not so fast. The will of the earth. This kind of thing is really interesting. Lucifer was thinking about this issue while fighting. Unfortunately, it seems that only the world of One Punch Man has the concept of planet representatives, and it is impossible for Lucifer to go to the living planets in the universe to find those planet representatives for hunting. Not to mention that burrows may have already swept them away, and Lucifer has also I don't have the ability to span this vast universe. Although his current flying speed is unimaginably fast, even the speed of light is too slow in this universe. It seems that you can use the wool of the earth for nothing. Every time you bring back a weirdo with vaccine human cells, let the wool of the earth strengthen it, and then kill it yourself and recycle it. The one-eyed vaccine man attacks crazily, and Lucifer is always on the defensive, waiting for the one-eyed vaccine man to cross that threshold. When the time comes, he will directly kill the one-eyed vaccine man. However, just when Lucifer was concentrating on fighting the enemy, he suddenly felt something. He turned around and saw that a head had popped out from nowhere on the other side of the moon. God! No eyes or other organs could be seen in that head, but Lucifer could feel a great chill. A 7th-level Kryptonian still fears gods. Lucifer frowned. Gods can give power to others to become dragon-level monsters at will. No one knows how strong the gods are, but since the sacrifice has not been completed yet, then it shouldn't be that strong. Then Lucifer was distracted by a punch in the face by the one-eyed vaccine man. When he knocked the one-eyed vaccine man away, he looked back and saw that the god was gone. It seemed that the gods were just alarmed and had no idea about him. Or maybe it was because he was so strong that the gods were not sure of taking him down. After the one-eyed vaccine man crossed the threshold, Lucifer took him back to the Marvel world. Otherwise, in the One Punch Man world, it would be difficult to kill the one-eyed vaccine man unless Saitama took action. The vaccine man was immortal in the first place. Immortal, endless energy. After killing the one-eyed vaccine man who was close to him, Lucifer saw that his experience points had increased a lot. "You're back?" Esdeath still didn't know what Lucifer was doing, so he asked other people, and only the mechanical voice said that Lucifer went to other worlds to fight. Esdeath was bored and wanted to follow him, but it turned out that only Lucifer himself had traveled through time world capabilities. "Well, how's it going?" Lucifer asked with concern. He abandoned Esdeath all at once because this level of battle was still too strong for her, so he didn't intend to let her participate. But about Esdeath becomes stronger, Lucifer is already studying it. "This place feels no different from my original world. I just want to be with you now," Esdeath said immediately. Lucifer thought for a moment. He was not used to Esdeath's clinginess. After all, he was single before and had no girlfriend or wife, so he naturally couldn't experience this feeling. "Well, I'm just about to go and see the new world. If you're bored, just come with me," Lucifer then said. The world of Lord of the Rings has not continued. Lucifer has mastered the technology of the Supreme Lord of the Rings and can create the Supreme Lord of the Rings at any time. Saruman no longer needs Lucifer to give him the Supreme Lord of the Rings. He can create the Supreme Lord of the Rings himself. Of course, Saruman was not as powerful as Lucifer and Sauron, and the Supreme Lord of the Rings he finally built was still a half-finished product. And Lucifer thought about it and felt that the setting of the 9 rings of humanity was very good. In the future, the senior executives of the Umbrella Company would use the Lord of the Rings to strengthen it. The effect of the 9 human ring is enough for them to pay everything for it. As for the 7 dwarf ring, the pure physical strength bonus and immortality are due to the use of Lucifer's power. If it is forged, then the 7 dwarf ring will the holder can even fight the Hulk in hand-to-hand combat. As for the 3 elven rings, Lucifer has no interest in forging them. Set off. Lucifer hugged Esdeath, and then the 2 of them disappeared. Endless desert. Where? Lucifer looked at the pale sky and earth in front of him, as if only monotonous white remained. Is this another world? Esdeath looked at it curiously. If the Marvel Universe gave her little sense of reality, then this world now gave Esdeath a clear sense of fragmentation. "Come on, I heard some noise," Lucifer said to Esdeath. Then he flew over with Esdeath and then saw a group of creatures. This group of creatures looks strange, like animals, but has a black body, exposed bones, and wears a bone-like mask. It turns out its Zu Lucifer was a little surprised. He came to the world of the god of death, and he was in the Hueco Mundo at the beginning. No wonder it seemed that there was only the color of pale. The pale world gave Lucifer the feeling that it was full of dust, and the wind blew and his whole body was covered with lime. Esdeath saw Lucifer's eyes turn red, and the familiar hot sight killed the group of hollows fighting each other below. Lucifer didn't need to worry that he couldn't see the hollows and the god of death because he didn't conform to the setting of the world of the god of death, nor did he need his soul to leave his body. The default was the universal rule, otherwise Tyrant's cells would be useless in the world of Akame no Mizuki. Esdeath also saw these hollows. It seems that you have a way to become stronger, Lucifer said to Esdeath, got a Zanpakutō, and then arranged for Esdeath to become a hollow, but I don't know if Esdeath can get higher in Maru, the strongest Zanpakutō of the ice and snow system. But it is also possible that Esdeath got other Zanpakutōs because she was an outsider. Although the Bleach does not have the ability to explode a star, even Sasuke Aizen, who is said to be able to evolve infinitely, the omniscient and omnipotent Ihwach, and even the Soul King do not have it, but it is still much more powerful than the world of Akame no Kill. At least it should be able to explode a country or even a continent, right? Chapter 69, Heading to Soul Society. Lucifer was very happy to slaughter those hollows in Hueco Mundo, and Esdeath also experienced the interest of killing for the first time in a long time. Although her strength in Hueco Mundo was not that strong, maybe Achukas could compete with Esdeath, or even defeat Esdeath, but she couldn't stand Lucifer next to Esdeath. That was completely feared by gods and ghosts. However, because the two of them are now quasi-high-intensity spirit particle aggregates, they are actually very attractive to these hollows. Lucifer, who didn't know how to go to Soul Society for the time being, could only kill these experience points that came to his door while looking for the Palace of the Night. Finding the Palace of the Night will know the timeline, but I don't know if Bylergan is the king of Hueco Mundo now. If not, it should be the time when Aizen Sasuke started the Arankar experiment. As for Bylergan before he became the king of Hueco Mundo, are you kidding? How long ago was that? Because Hueco Mundo is very large, it is also difficult to find the Palace of the Night. Lucifer didn't know how many miscellaneous hollows, low-level hollows, or even big hollows he had killed. I have never seen an Achukas, let alone Vastod. There are only a few Vastods in the original plot. If we can't find that palace, can we not go to the Soul Society? That day, Lucifer and Esdeath lit a bonfire, and Esdeath asked while lying in Lucifer's arms. There is no way. I can't go there until my power is strong enough to break the space. The captured hollow can't speak, so I need at least the level of Achukas, Lucifer said helplessly. When watching the anime, there were so many Achukas fighting each other to become Vastods. Why can't I see an Achukas now? Otherwise, I can threaten it to open the black cavity to the Soul Society by beating it. But at this time, Lucifer heard some noises. He looked back and found that several kilometers away, a shark-like hollow was fighting with a blonde woman, but the blonde woman was obviously defeated. Vastod. Lucifer stood up. It was not only Vastod, but also one of the future 10 Blades, Tia Harable. And this scene looked familiar. Wasn't this the scene where Aizen Sasuke rescued the beauty and subdued Tia Harable and her 3 subordinates? So it's at this time Lucifer saw this scene and naturally couldn't ignore it. He came to fight monsters, and Aizen Sasuke was naturally a good monster. Seeing that Tia Harable was about to be killed by the former Yachukas, she was a little unbelievable. Then, suddenly, with a loud noise, Lucifer appeared in front of Tia Harable, blocking the shark Yachukas, and by the way repelled Aizen Sasuke, who wanted to rescue the beauty. The opponent was punched by Lucifer and flew away to an unknown place. Ikamaru Jin's pupils shrank in the distance. Are you okay? Lucifer crushed the head of the shark Achuka's Arankar casually. then turned around and said to Tia Horrible, Are you the god of death? Tia Horrible looked at Lucifer in front of her and asked with mixed feelings, How could I be the god of death? I'm not wearing that kind of clothes. I don't have a death hater or a Zanpakutō. Lucifer would not accept wearing a death hater. Anyway, he would not become a god of death. Wearing socks and clogs would be too stupid. He couldn't do it. Who are you? Tia Horrible asked. I'm here to travel in Hueco Mundo. Lucifer thought for a while and said, Pribble. At this time, Apache, Sun, and Mira Ross, the three Achukas, protected Tia Horrible. This guy who looked like a god of death was very suspicious. However, after all, in the original plot, Aizen Sasuke, as a god of death, could subdue Tia Horrible, not to mention Lucifer. Lucifer, who intercepted Aizen Sasuke's careful plan, took Tia Horrible and others away to prevent Aizen Sasuke from coming back. Is this Achukas? Esdeath did not move from where she was. When she saw Lucifer coming back with a woman and 3 animals, her eyes turned to Tia Horrible. No, she is Vastod. Lucifer explained that there is a big difference between Vastod and Achukas. Tia Horrible saw Esdeath and felt hostile for some reason. She is Esdeath, my woman. She is a Vastod level hollow. The other 3 are Achukas, but I don't know their names yet. Lucifer introduced each other, and then Tia Horrible and Apache said their names. So, are we going to open the Black Chamber and go to Soul Society next? Esdeath nodded, ignoring these things, and said to Lucifer, Go to Soul Society? Tia Horrible asked puzzledly. Yes, Horrible, next please help them open the Black Chamber to Soul Society. Esdeath and I want to travel to Soul Society. Lucifer said to them. Soul Society is very dangerous, Tia Horrible said hesitantly. It doesn't matter. Lucifer shook his head. He just went there to get 2 Zanpakutō. What's the danger? Of course, 2 is just a quantifier. If it works well, Lucifer might join the Zero Division and interrogate the bald man about how to forge Zanpakutō and mass-produce it. Tia Horrible had no choice but to agree to open the Black Chamber. If a Vastod of her level went there, Soul Society would find out instantly. After all, Mayuri Kuratsuchi's Technology Development Bureau is not an easy task. By the way, is Mayuri Kuratsuchi now, or is Kisukirahara still the director? Tia Horrible opened the Black Chamber, and after Lucifer observed carefully, he understood what to do. It was not that they were stronger than Lucifer, but that spiritual pressure was really something that could be manipulated, and Lucifer had no spiritual pressure. Perhaps he would have spiritual pressure after releasing his Zanpakutō. I'm leaving. See you next time. Lucifer waved his hand, and then Esdeath followed him into the Black Chamber. Next time Tia Horrible wanted to go in with him, but finally gave up. She didn't want to cause trouble for Lucifer. Hai Kong had to pass through the Dankai to go to Soul Society. A golden light suddenly appeared behind Lucifer and Esdeath, and then a huge black monster rushed over. It's a Judo. Lucifer thought about it, but still didn't kill the Judo in seconds. Esdeath didn't know what it was, so she was eager to try. Chapter 70 Zanpakutō. Let's go, that's something you can't deal with. Lucifer took Esdeath away. Judo couldn't get close to Lucifer no matter how hard he tried. Although he was walking leisurely, his speed was not slow at all. In this way, they passed the Dankai and reached the Soul Society. Is this the Soul Society? It does look very different from Hueco Mundo. Esdeath looked around. Yes, there are big differences, Lucifer said calmly. Then he entered Rukengai. The core of the Soul Society in Bleach is the Soul Society, and outside the Soul Society is the Rukengai. There are peaceful Rukengai, and there are also chaotic Rukengai like the Zaraki district where Kenpachi Zaraki is located. It is so chaotic that even the Zanpakutō of the Bleach god can be robbed. Lucifer's purpose is just to get a Zanpakutō for Esdeath, so naturally he will not join the Soul Society or the Soul Society. Just rob one at random. The patrolling ones seemed to be the Shinigami of the 10th Division. Lucifer saw Shinigami patrolling on Rukengai. This was only seen in the peaceful Rukengai area. It was mainly for the safety of the Shinigami's family members and to protect these Yukin from being attacked by hollows. Unless the Shinigami's family members were also Shinigami, they could not enter the Soul Society, except for the nobles. The so-called nobles were just kings, princes, generals, and ministers. All have their own kind because in the world of Shinigami, bloodline was really valued and bloodline really had natural power. For example, the 4 nobles were like this, with a higher spiritual pressure than others, an ordinary Yukin and Shinigami. Occasionally there were a few extraordinary geniuses, but it was difficult to shake the rule of the aristocracy. Lucifer went up and knocked out several Shinigami, took away their Zanpakutō, and then left openly. Not long after, these unlucky guys were discovered, but the loss of their Zanpakutō did not attract much attention. At most, they might take longer than others to get their Zanpakutō. Is this a Zanpakutō? Esdeath picked up one of the Zanpakutō and swung it a few times. She couldn't feel any power at all. It was far worse than what she used before. This is just the initial shallow strike. It can't be called a Zanpakutō. The shape and power of a real Zanpakutō are based on the soul of the god of death. The god of death gets power by knowing the name of the Zanpakutō given to him and having a spiritual dialogue with it. This is the Zanpakutō. So troublesome? Esdeath felt a little confused. Each Zanpakutō has its own soul, thoughts, and personality. Don't think it is just a weapon. Lucifer shrugged. He didn't really understand the setting of Zanpakutō. He only knew a little about the information about Zanpakutō. In the 523rd chapter of the manga, Naruto mentioned that all the members of the Godai 13 Division, who had over 6,000 members, had temporarily loaned out their nameless Zanpakutō during their time as students in the academy and were officially granted the nameless Zanpakutō when they joined the team. All the Shinigami lived and ate with this Asachi, and through accumulated training, they wrote the essence of their souls into the Asachi and created their own Zanpakutō. In the 540th chapter of the manga, Naruto mentioned that the raw materials of Zanpakutō were the same as the Hyaku made by Aizen Sasuke, which was formed by the fusion of the souls of many Shinigami. So, in theory, the source of the power of Zanpakutō is the fused souls of those Shinigami. It sounds like the Soul Society is not a serious place, but it's not surprising, although they claim to be righteous and maintain order. Call my name. My name is, however, Lucifer had just put his hand on one of the Asachi and pulled it out when he heard a voice. Lucifer's pupils shrank. Then he put the Asachi back into the sheath as if nothing had happened. I didn't expect to be able to release Zanpakutō right away, and it was this Zanpakutō. But for the sake of safety, Lucifer would not release Zanpakutō here if he didn't want to be discovered by the Quincy's of the Invisible Empire. Esdeath fiddled with it for a long time without any response. Lucifer thought about it, imitated Tia Haribel's behavior of opening the black cavity, and then waved his hand to tear out a black cavity. He just had spiritual pressure. Coupled with the terrible power of the Kryptonians, it was very simple to open the black cavity. Let's go. Lucifer took Esdeath back to Hueco Mundo. Not long after, a man dressed as a Quincy appeared where they were, and the man glanced around. Black cavity, is it from Hueco Mundo? Lucifer and Esdeath, who returned to Hueco Mundo naturally, would not appear in the original place. Lucifer still couldn't locate it, so how could he appear in the original place? But he was not interested in looking for Tia Haribel and the others. He would talk about it after Aizen Sasuke gave them the Arankar. Esdeath, let's start conquering the Zanpakutō. Perhaps it will be easier to release it when fighting against the Hollows, Lucifer said to Esdeath. Yes. Esdeath also planned to try this Zanpakutō. Anyway, as long as she fought with it and treated it as a human, she would be able to release it, right? As for Lucifer himself, he pulled out his Zanpakutō after finding a group of hollows. Shatter, Mirror Flower and Water Moon. Esdeath saw the light, and then the group of hollows stood there motionless. Lucifer held his Zanpakutō. Is that your Zanpakutō? Esdeath didn't feel any changes. Yes, this is my Zanpakutō, the strongest illusion-type Zanpakutō. Kyoka Suijutsu. The ability is complete hypnosis. Control the opponent's 5 senses, so that the appearance, form, quality, touch, and even smell of a specific object are completely believed to be what the owner wants. Lucifer didn't expect that he would get the same Zanpakutō as Aizen Sasuke. He had only heard of 2 Hyoranmaru before, but he didn't expect there were 2 Kyoka Suijutsu. I don't know if I can use it in front of Aizen Sasuke to completely hypnotize him. If it can, it will be interesting. After listening to Lucifer's words, Esdeath felt that he seemed very powerful. Though, Lucifer used the ability of Kyoka Suijutsu to make the group of hollows ignore his existence and rushed towards Esdeath. Interesting, I'll try it too. Esdeath pulled out the Shoto. With her combat skills and the Shoto weapon that was specifically designed to deal with hollows, killing them was easy. If it was difficult to simply create ice to fight the enemy before, it was easy now. It seems that this group of hollows is no longer a problem for you. Then let's go to the Great Hollow Forest next. Lucifer said. Chapter 71, Bylergan. Lucifer is usually a very homely person, and in fact he is very homely. If not necessary, he can stay at home all year round. So now Lucifer is living a very comfortable life. After he and Esdeath found the Daxu forest, Esdeath started killing, and the ordinary Killian Daxu gave Esdeath Death's pressure was just right, and Lucifer was able to see the transformation taking place in Esdeath from the perspective of spiritual pressure. Finally, after Esdeath killed the 100th Killian Daxu, she called out the name of her Zanpakutō. The devil appears, the devil's essence. The shallow blow in Esdeath's hand instantly turned into a thin sword, just like the sword of the peerless swordswoman. The surrounding temperature dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. Lucifer was a little surprised. Did Esdeath turn the power of the Tegu into the ability of the Zanpakutō? Or is it the soul of Tegu? It's just a drop of Bingfang's blood, so it probably has no soul at all. Everything is cold and cold. Then Esdeath continued. So, the front is liberation language? Lucifer was startled. Well, the devil appears. The essence of the devil is the language of liberation. Her name is Senhen Wongsang. Esdeath stroked her Zanpakutō, feeling that it was so special for the first time. Even though she had already experienced the Tegu, the Zanpakutō was a very novel experience and feeling for her. What is Senhen Wongsang's ability? Lucifer asked with interest, not knowing who was stronger between Senhen Wongsang and Hyoranmaru. After all, Esdeath had integrated the power of the Tegu into it. The place hit by it will be frozen, and then it can be manipulated to form ice cubes of various shapes. Finally, there is the cold air. If the coldness exists, it will continue to release the cold air, and finally turn everything around it into a world of ice and snow. Esdeath said, there are even domain skills, but just the beginning of the solution has 3 abilities. Lucifer nodded. In any case, the development potential of the Senhen Wongsang Zanpakutō is much greater than that of the Tegu. It may not be impossible for the swastika to freeze molecular motion and stop time and space. Lucifer was looking forward to going back to the world of Crimson Eyes, killing the Ice Phoenix and letting Esdeath drink all its blood and eat all her flesh, and then go to the world of One Piece to chop down the blue pheasant and get the frozen fruit for him. If Esdeath eats it, will she be able to freeze time forever? It's strange, Aizen Sasuke hasn't taken action yet. Lucifer was staying in the Daxu forest, and he had been paying attention to the Zui Palace, but he didn't know if it was because of the influence of Aizen Sasuke, whom he punched away last time. Zui Palace has been very good so far. Calm. There was no large-scale Shinigami transformation experiment and a rancor like in the original plot, and neither Chiyukas nor Killian had much movement. It is also possible that Soyosuke Aizen has completed the experiment and it is his turn to conduct the virtualization experiment on the Shinigami. Lucifer plans to get the complete Bengyu, and then he can transform Esdeath into a virtual and a god of death to improve her strength, and the transformation into a god of death and virtualization may allow Esdeath to live for a long time. You see, each god of death has lived for thousands of years. Yamamoto Genryanagi Shaichuni Yamamoto was the first captain. And there is a very interesting bug here. That is, Kyubo said before that the captain needs to be changed every once in a while people. But Yamamoto Genryu Seishaichuni has always been the commander-in-chief and has never changed, so every time the commander-in-chief needs to be changed, Yamamoto Genryu Seishaichuni will destroy himself in the mirror, and I will be the new commander-in-chief team leader since Aizen can't come. Let's go find him. Lucifer planned to visit Zui Palace and kill a few Arankars by the way. His experience points had increased a lot since coming to the Death God world, and they were almost as good as a large group of dragon-level monsters killed by him. The strength of Killian Daxu is almost the same as that of dragon-level monsters because he can already use Virtual Flash. In terms of destructive power, it may be stronger than most dragon-level monsters, and it can be regarded as an enhanced version of the Wandering Emperor. As for the Killian Arankar, it is estimated that they all have combat power above dragons, and their destructive power may not be as good as the Shinigami is really not good at destructive power. Akiko Mizuki and Yusuke Aizen, the evolved body of Handama, fought against each other and then nothing happened. After climbing a mountain, Aizen Sasuke was very excited and proud. It can only be said that this may not be comparable to that of the Hokage. At least it is very easy and simple for the cage level to defeat a mountain. Not to mention among the pirates, in order to deal with Green Pepper's collision, Iron Fist Garp had to level several mountains with his fists before dealing with Green Pepper. So it's really annoying. The battle between Judozu and Ulquara was obviously very good, and they exploded easily, but it didn't work when it came to Akiko Mizuki and Aizen, the evolved form of Handama. Zui Palace. Bylergan held his cheek with one hand and looked at the virtual beings below all the Arankars. He didn't know why. Aizen Sasuke came back one day, and then said that he had to go back to Soul Society if something happened. Don't contact him if anything happened here, and wait until he comes back to talk, and then left. Bylergan wished for this. He was already very dissatisfied with Aizen Soyosuke's behavior of forcing him to become his subordinate, let alone obeying him. Bylergan has always been the king. Suddenly, screams came from the door. What happened? Bylergan looked at the door and then saw a man and a woman appear. The man's temperament was very similar to Aizen Sasuke, whom he hated, that kind of arrogant feeling. He seemed to be looking at you, but in fact he was looking down on everyone. And the woman was trampling a Jillian Arankar with the tip of a high-heeled shoe. Are the 10 Espada Arankars not complete yet? Lucifer glanced at the hall, and after seeing that it was Bylergan sitting on the throne, he realized that Aizen Sasuke probably went back to the Soul Society. Bylergan, who had already turned into a human form, looked at the two with unkind eyes. The god of death dared to come here. Bylergan said very unhappy. Thanks to Aizen Sasuke, he looked at all the god of death even more unhappy. Oh. Then all the Arankars heard the man's interesting voice, as if he had found something interesting. The next moment, they saw the man appear on the throne at some point, and Bylergan he was at the man's feet. How dare you say such a thing when you are so slow to react? Lucifer asked calmly, holding his cheek with one hand. Bylergan couldn't believe it. He didn't feel when Lucifer kicked him off the throne and sat on it himself. The detection nerves didn't react at all. Chapter 72, King of Hueco Mundo. Damn it! Bylergan Ruzenbin tried to resist, but Lucifer's feet seemed to be motionless. He couldn't shake, and even the ground was not damaged. Under the effect of the biological force field, Lucifer could do whatever he wanted. Bylergan Ruzenban let alone struggle, even if there was a piece of tofu under him. No matter how hard he tried, the tofu would not break. Seeing this situation, the other hollows immediately planned to help Bylergan Ruzenban. Their king had not yet returned to the blade, and the invincible decay ability had not yet been exerted, so there was still a possibility of turning defeat into victory. In this case, of course, these little brothers could not help but take risks. Your opponent is me. Esdeath swung the sword and stabbed an hollow, and the hollow immediately felt that the place where he was stabbed seemed to have lost consciousness, and then realized that it had turned into ice. That's right, it's not frozen, but turned into ice. Esdeath also found out before that the ability effect that Senhen Wangxiang told her was not right. The place injured by this sword will not freeze, but will turn into ice in an unscientific way. This will cause a bigger wound after the ice melts. This attack method is still very creepy, but only direct attack can have this effect, and making various ice attacks will not have this effect. The Arankars will naturally not let go of Esdeath, the woman who blocked them. Gree air conditioner is not here. There are so few Arankars, it seems that Aizen Sasuke was scared away. Lucifer felt a little regretful. He was still thinking about whether he could see the normal Nell. Of course, for Lucifer, the girls in the world of Death God are not his cup of tea, so he has no thoughts in that regard. He didn't go to see Death God for the girls at the beginning, but for the fashion value and style of Death God. Esdeath was in high spirits, and the cold and frosty world was like Akame's demon sword Murasame, or even more terrifying than Murasame, because it could turn living or dead things into ice cubes, which led to the rushing Arankars all lying flat soon. Seeing this, Bylergan Ruzenbang returned to the sword without saying a word. It was obvious that the enemy was no longer something that could be easily dealt with, so what was he waiting for? Rotten, Skull Emperor. Bylergan Ruzenbang read out the words of his liberation. After liberation, Bylergan Ruzenbang wore a multi-layered crown on his head, his face and body turned into a skull. He wore boots, his whole body was covered with black flames, and there was a long silver chain from the corner of the crown, similar to the death chains of the traditional European death god image. Lucifer still did not move. Bylergan Ruzenbang's decay and aging ability acted on his whole body. He had been using the aging ability before, but neither the ground nor Lucifer's feet seemed to be affected, so Bylergan Ruzenbang chose to return to the blade. After returning to the blade, his power became stronger and his corruption ability became stronger, but Lucifer still did not move at all, and there was no reaction when stepping on his feet. Instead, some of his fallen subordinates were accidentally touched by the spreading decay power and aged to death without saying a word. It's useless. Your decay and aging ability can only take effect when it is touched, but with the force field, your ability is a joke. Lucifer said calmly. The decay and aging ability is very strong, and the restraint on everything is very strong, but can it restrain the magnetic field and gravitational field? The same is true for the biological force field. Lucifer only needs to use the biological force field to isolate Bylergan Ruzenbang's ability. Seeing his invincible power lose its effect for the first time, Bylergan Ruzenbang was in disbelief. His skull blew a sigh of death at Lucifer, and the concentrated breath of death was ignored by Lucifer like a breeze. Then after the breath of death dissipated, Lucifer's unscathed performance hit the morale of Bylergan Ruzenbang and his men. Even the invincible breath of death couldn't deal with this god of death. Until now, the boss has been trampled underfoot. How strong is this god of death? Submit, Bylergan Ruzenbang, you should have clearly experienced the so-called power. Lucifer said to Bylergan Ruzenbang. But Bylergan Ruzenbang is not the kind of guy who surrenders easily, and he doesn't want to compromise with Lucifer at all. Is that so? Then you can die. Lucifer exerted a little force, and Bylergan Ruzenbang's head exploded. The other hollows were stunned. Lucifer had no intention of conquering Bylergan Ruzenbang. He was not Aizen Sasuke, who needed manpower. He was just a Vastod Arankar. How could he really act so arrogantly? It just so happened that he had already become an Arankar, and from the original plot, he could not perform the second stage of reincarnation, which was far inferior to Ulquara. He did not need to wait for him to become stronger, and he could directly kill him to gain experience points. The remaining Jillian Arankar and Yachuka's Arankar were all convinced. Since Aizen Sasuke could conquer them, there was no reason why the more powerful Lucifer could not do it. And the first order Lucifer gave them was to drive all the hollows in Hueco Mundo to fight, so as to produce a large number of great hollows. Lord Lucifer, if you do this, it will affect the balance of Hueco Mundo. Jillian Arankar said to Lucifer. It doesn't matter. When Hueco Mundo lacks hollows, the souls of the real world will automatically be added to Hueco Mundo. At that time, the number of wandering souls in Soul Society will decrease, and the number of new Shinigami will also decrease. On the contrary, we will increase our high-end combat power, Lucifer said. Hueco Mundo, Soul Society, and the real world are the world views of the Shinigami. The balance of the three worlds is maintained by each other and maintained by the Soul Ace battery. New souls become humans in the real world and become whole after death. They either go to Soul Society, reincarnate, or become hollows and go to Hueco Mundo. Of course, there are other ways for those purified by the Shinigami, such as going to hell for heinous crimes. Lucifer thinks that Hueco Mundo is also a very profitable experience field, which is not worse than the world of One Punch Man at all, and may be stronger in some aspects. For example, in the world of One Punch Man, no matter how many monsters there are and how frequently they appear, they will not be as full of hollows as in Hueco Mundo. Even the strength of the mixed hollows can be regarded as tiger-level monsters in the world of One Punch Man. After listening to Lucifer's words, these Arankar felt that it seemed to make sense, so they no longer insisted on their own ideas. After all, it seemed that Lucifer had become the new king of Hueco Mundo. Chapter 73, Esdeath the Broken Mask. A group of Arankars performed their tasks very well. After all, the Achuka's Arankar can defeat a veteran Vastod-level hollow like Tia Harrible, and the Killian Arankar can even drive the Achuka's hollows together. Then he watched them fight each other. Because there was no Hagioku, most of these Achukas could only die in attrition, and no Vastod was born. Lucifer also knew that he couldn't expect Vastod to appear here. Aizen Sasuke ruled Hueco Mundo for so long, and only 4 Vastods appeared. The other 10 Espadas were just Achuka's Arankars. Moreover, the first batch of 10 Espadas were even Killian Arankars, and they were eliminated later and replaced by Achuka's Arankars and Vastod Arankars. But now Aizen Sasuke was scared away by himself and returned to Soul Society. I don't know when he will come here again. Lucifer originally wanted to cooperate with him to create Hagioku. The method of making the Hagioku is very simple. After Urahara invented the Hagioku, he found that the Hagioku had a much higher spiritual pressure than the captain level after awakening. Before that, Aizen also made a Hagioku and sacrificed tens of thousands of souls in Rukengai who had the potential to become elite Shinigami for it. In Bleach, it was first explained that the Hagioku was invented by the former captain of the 12th Division, Urahara Kisuke, and was created based on absorbing a large number of hollows. Lucifer intends to try Urahara Kisuke's method, but he is not sure whether it will succeed, although it can be seen from the fact that Aizen Sasuke accidentally extracted the fingertips of the Soul King from Rangiku Matsumoto's body. The formation of the Hagioku does not require the parts of the Soul King, but it is difficult to satisfy the Hagioku. Of course, even if it is not satisfied, it doesn't matter. The Hagioku has the ability to turn people into Shinigami and hollows. After fusing the souls of hundreds of Achukas and thousands of Jillian hollows, the Hagioku was born. The third piece of Hagioku is in my hand. If you snatch the one from Aizen Sasuke or Urahara Kisuke, it will be complete. Lucifer did not immediately turn Esdeath into a Shinigami and then into a hollow. After all, she was his woman, and fortunately there was no shortage of experimental subjects. The Arankars of the Palace of the Night originally thought that there was no benefit in obeying an external Shinigami like Lucifer. Aizen Sasuke at least gave them power, but they didn't expect that he seemed to have a Hagioku now. What's going on? Is Hagioku so common that every Shinigami has one? Sara Paulo Grants, the strongest Arankar in the entire work appointed by Kubo, was not seen. However, there were still some surprises, such as the appearance of a new Vastod, which had not appeared in the original plot. It might be due to the influence of Lucifer's appearance. This Vastod also looks human, but it looks like a crocodile turned into a human. His spiritual pressure is very strong, but he is also very stubborn. He was beaten by Lucifer for a while before he obeyed. Then Lucifer gave him the name Rikton after he turned him into an Arankar. Renekton, the desert butcher, is very suitable for him. During this period, Lucifer also brought Saruman and Genos from the Marvel world and asked them to study these hollows to see if they could find the possibility of mass-producing Vastod. Saruman is okay, after all, he is a mysterious side, but Genos feels that he has no way to start. These are all soul bodies. Although they will bleed when injured, they have no cells and genes. And the way of evolution still relies on devouring each other, which is too primitive and backward. Saruman quickly accepted the setting and began to study with great interest. This kind of creature was something he had never seen before. Sure enough, it was right to follow Lucifer to leave his world. Without a big leader, Lucifer usually doesn't care about him. As long as he completes the things he has assigned, it's fine. Genos followed suit. Lucifer conducted experiments on hundreds of Achukas and finally transformed Esdeath into a death god and a hollow. Because the Hagioku can satisfy the desires of the mind, it can be transformed into a death god and a hollow as long as the person who holds it has the ability to achieve it. This ability refers not only to strength, but also to potential. Then Lucifer felt a burst of deep blue spiritual pressure. The strength of Esdeath's spiritual pressure soon exceeded the captain level, alarming all the Arankars in the Kyonyaku Palace. Then Lucifer made Esdeath a hollow, and Esdeath's spiritual pressure increased explosively again. She actually has the potential to become a Vastod. Lucifer clearly sensed this. If Esdeath died and became a hollow, she could become a king hollow at the level of Vastod. All the Arankars of the Kyon Palace arrived here, and then they saw the unprecedented spiritual pressure surging out. Esdeath wore a bone mask, and her long dark blue hair fluttered. The spiritual pressure surging out of her body disintegrated the approaching Jillian hollow. The spiritual pressure was so strong that it would automatically consume the approaching soul like Coit Stark. Esdeath's strength can be said to have jumped 3 levels, but she quickly lifted the hollow. This feeling is really wonderful. Esdeath's face was full of excitement, and then she found that her Morhan Wongsing had become 2. The Hagioku can realize the thoughts or wishes of the mind, so now you are equivalent to a Shinigami captain and a Vastod Arankar combined into one. In terms of combat power, perhaps only Aizen Sasuke, Yamamoto Gen Yusai Shijuni and the people of the Zero Division can match you. If Lucifer wants to give, of course he must give the best Esdeath, even if it makes Benyu weak. It doesn't matter, anyway, he only needs to consume his soul to replenish it. Renekton originally looked down on the others, thinking that Lucifer was the biggest and second to him, but when he felt Esdeath's spiritual pressure, which was so powerful that it stirred up the entire Hueco Mundo, he was shocked. Not to mention him, the same goes for other Arankars. They had fought against Esdeath before and felt that Esdeath's spiritual pressure was not strong, but the Zanpakutō's ability was weird. If they had the ability, they would not use the Zanpakutō. Even the Blade of No Return can take care of Esdeath. Now, it feels like my body is about to collapse just by facing Esdeath's spiritual pressure, which is very uncomfortable. What is the ability of the other knife? Lucifer asked Esdeath with interest, If the Zanpakutō on the death god's side is Senhen Wongsang, what is the power of the seal behind the Vastod Arankar? Mahabhatma. Esdeath said a word that the Arankars couldn't understand, but Lucifer understood it instantly. Is it actually opened like this? As soon as I returned to the sword, Mahabhatma began, but it only lasted a few seconds. Esdeath said, Chapter 74, Vastod came to us on his own. Isn't that the shortest return blade in history? Lucifer complained. Well, even if the duration is the shortest, it is still a time-freezing ultimate. Can it only be used once a day? Lucifer asked the Arankars to leave on their own, and then asked Esdeath. No, it can be used once every hour, but if you can achieve the second stage return of the blade as you mentioned, it should be able to stop for a longer period of time and use it more times. Esdeath thought for a moment and then said, Is that so? That's not bad. Anyway, you are now a Vastod level Daxu. The strength of the steel skin is very high. You don't have to worry about being injured. After returning to the sword, the injury will be fully recovered. Lucifer was very satisfied. Now Esdeath shouldn't have to worry about dying of old age. However, something happened next, that is, someone broke into Zui Palace. Is the spiritual pressure you feel the same as you? This is a very lazy-looking uncle. He looked at Esdeath and said, Kiardi Stark. Lucifer saw this Vastod Arankar that he sent to his door. This was Vastod's Arankar on his own. He just didn't know if it had split his soul. If not, it would be really worth looking forward to. It's very strong. The spiritual pressure emitted unconsciously is as strong as a monster. Esdeath looked at Kiate Stark with some surprise and said, I don't want to fight you. Kiate Stark looked around and found that for some reason, the hollows around him didn't seem to be afraid of the spiritual pressure he exuded. Could it be that the hollows here were very strong? Esdeath, it just so happens that your strength has greatly increased. Why not give it a try? Lucifer said to Esdeath. Wait. Before Kiate Stark could finish his words, Esdeath drew his sword and slashed at him. In desperation, Kiate Stark could only fight with Esdeath. But the more he beat him, the more surprised he became, because Esdeath was more powerful than he imagined. This was the first time that Kiate Stark encountered such a strong opponent. The previous hollows couldn't even get close. Not to mention defeating him, and now, Kiate Stark really feels that if he is not serious, he will definitely lose. It's rare for Vastod to break through on his own, Esdeath. Lucifer said while holding his cheek and watching the two fight. Kiate Stark had a speechless expression on his face. He wanted to admit defeat, but looking at Esdeath's look, he definitely wouldn't accept it. Virtual flash. Esdeath stretched out a hand, and a dark blue to almost black flash of light roared out. The energy rainbow penetrated the Zui Palace. Several Arankars were accidentally beaten to ashes by this flash of light. Kiate Stark's pupils shrank and he ran away. Although he is an Arankar on his own, he has not yet been transformed into an Arankar by Benyu, so he does not have his own return blade. Of course, even so, Kiate Stark's virtual flash is also Wang Xu's flash, not much different. It is AI. The intensity of Esdeath's false flash made Kiate Stark realize that Esdeath was not the companion he was looking for, but a being more powerful than him. I give up, Kiate Stark said immediately and neatly, not wanting to continue the fight at all. The problem was that Lucifer did not shout to stop, and Esdeath was unwilling to stop. After being chopped several times, Kiate Stark had to counterattack. This steel skin and spiritual pressure are really powerful, even Esdeath can't cut it. Lucifer clicked his tongue and said, I don't know how Kiate Stark was so easily broken and killed in the original plot. Could it be that Kubo forgot the setting of steel skin? After fooling around for a while, Esdeath felt disgusted that Kiate Stark was so lazy but so powerful, so he gave up the fight, and Kiate Stark naturally surrendered to Lucifer. This guy just wants to find a companion, especially since he hasn't split his soul yet and feels very lonely. Just meeting this group of people who are not afraid of his spiritual pressure, Kiyote Stark doesn't want to leave. However, after knowing Lucifer, it was the king of Hueco Mundo. After Esdeath was not as powerful as him, Kiyote Stark felt more at ease. Lucifer gave him an Arankar, and then he became the 10th blade, and Esdeath was naturally the 00th blade. Currently, there are only 3 Vastod Arankars in the entire Void Palace: Esdeath, Kiyote Stark, and Renekton. So Lucifer sent his men to look for Ulquara, Tia Hribble, and Neliel du Oderchevank. After the Arankar, Renekton, who wore a hairstyle like Nikaido Benimaru, expressed his dissatisfaction that Kiyote Stark was ranked higher than him. But Kiyote Stark didn't care, saying that if Renekton wanted, he could directly make way for Renekton. "Uncle Bastard, who asked you to give in?" Renekton was very angry. His ability was not the same thunder and lightning as Nikaido Benimaru, but the ability to control wind like Gonets. However, he did not use storms and tornadoes, but wind blades. You can release the wind blade with just a wave of your hand, and it's not an ordinary wind blade. It's similar to Hawkeye Mihawk's slashing wind blade that can split mountains and seas. Renekton took action against Kiyote Stark without saying a word. 108 troubled winds. Hundreds of wind blade slashes flew towards Kiyote Stark. Kiyote Stark was originally amazed that Esdeath and Lucifer were stronger than him, but now he found that Renekton seemed to be no better than him. How much weaker it really pleased Kiyote Stark. Of course, after he breaks through the surface, his powerful spiritual pressure will not hurt others unless he chooses to return to the sword. Kiyote Stark easily dodged Renekton's wind blade slash, and his strength after breaking through the surface has improved a lot. The two sides fought fiercely, and Zui Palace was demolished on a daily basis, but it didn't matter. After they finished fighting, Lucifer would send someone to urge them to repair Zui Palace themselves, so that they could realize that fighting could not be fought in Zui Palace. Renekton was naturally no match for Kiyote Stark, but he refused to give up. Tear him apart, King Crocodile. Renekton chose to return to the sword. Kiyote Stark suddenly felt that Renekton's spiritual pressure surged to a terrifying level, and then his whole body was covered with bone. His right hand was like a crocodile tail, but it went straight down, with a sharp edge. A jagged weapon on the other side. Wind injury. Renekton waved the strange weapon in his right hand, and suddenly a wind blade spread out in a fan shape. Kiyote Stark's pupils shrank, and he released a large number of false flashes to try to crush the blow. Chapter 75. Hunt him down, wolves. Kiyote Stark, in the original plot, felt lonely because he was too powerful. In the end, he chose to split his soul in order to prevent himself from enduring loneliness. Of course, the situation is different now. He had not experienced loneliness for long before he met Lucifer and Esdeath. Now he saw Renekton, who was similar in strength to himself. Kiyote Stark felt unprecedented passion and passion power. As a result, cracks and changes appeared in his lazy character boom. The terrifying blue spiritual pressure swept out, and the dust and all tiny objects on the ground were crushed and turned into powder. For other Arankars and even Daxu, it seemed as if there was an invisible weight in the world, making them unable to move even an inch. He could only look at Kiyote Stark tremblingly. This guy Renekton didn't expect Kiyote Stark to hide so much. Virtual flash. Kiyote Stark's false flash was released from his chest, with almost no preparatory movements. However, its speed and power are superior to other Arankars. After Renekton's wind wound met Kiyote Stark's false flash, the confrontation was broken in less than a second, and he continued to move forward. After all, Renekton's strength before returning to the sword was not much weaker than that of Kiyote Stark, who has not yet returned to the sword, and he has now returned to the sword. The corners of Kiyote Stark's mouth rose, and he began to get excited. Go after him, wolves. Then he also chose to return to the sword, and the vast sea of spiritual pressure overwhelmed everything. The invisible spiritual pressure caused most of the casualties of ordinary hollows and great hollows. This is the complete Koite Stark. Lucifer didn't expect to be so strong. Although it was still nothing to him, it should be much stronger than the original plot, because he was complete. Are these two guys really showing off? Esdeath used spiritual pressure to block the incoming shock wave and the dangerous spiritual pressure that escaped. Lucifer sat on the throne and watched the battle unmoved. Unlimited reloading of false flash. Exclamation! Koite Stark held both guns in his hands and fired a large number of blue false flashes in the direction of Renekton and Windwound. The intensity of each false flash was higher than the false flash before he returned to the sword. In addition, at this frequency, Koite Stark can be called the Arankar with the strongest firepower output. Boom, 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 boom. This time, Windwound was defeated by infinite reloading false flash, and Renekton was also hit by artillery fire. This terrifying blow spread to the horizon. Koite Stark didn't know how many false flashes he output. What he saw would be everything was razed to the ground. 108 troubled winds. Renekton's voice appeared, and then countless wind blades clashed with infinite reloading flashes, causing an even greater commotion like the earth was shattering. Seeing that Renekton still had the ability to resist, Koite Stark used his ultimate move without saying a word. Go after him, wolves. Koite Stark's strongest move is to split his soul into many pieces. Each piece can be transformed into a ferocious wolf. Each wolf is an independent weapon like its compatriots. It will explode after biting the enemy. Moreover, when the wolves encounter physical attacks, they will pass through physical attacks like flames, just like wolf-shaped missiles. The warheads of those wolves are Koite Stark's. The disadvantage is that the number is not infinite, and Lilinite will disappear after all the wolves explode. But now there is naturally no such shortcoming. Koite Stark is complete, so these wolves are the strongest, and their number is much larger than in the original plot. Oh, this move seems very interesting. Esdeath's eyes lit up, as if he was inspired. Don't imitate him, Lucifer said to Esdeath. Why? Esdeath was puzzled. He's a fool, Lucifer said matter-of-factly. Split souls can be easily weakened by others, not to mention that in the original plot he also weakened himself. He is as stupid as the strongest Arankar. So if Esdeath were to be like the two of them, she might become weak. This is good now. Although there is the shortest return in history, returning to the edge means victory. Even if time is stopped for only a few seconds, it is enough for Esdeath to complete hundreds of attacks now. It is a complete victory. Boom, 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 boom. Renekton had just flown out of the bombardment of the infinite reload flash and was met by a large group of wolves. He waved the crocodile tail on his right arm to try to stop these wolves, but they turned into flames and passed through the crocodile tail. Then it bit Renekton's body, and then his body lit up and exploded. The entire zoo palace collapsed due to the vibration of the explosion. It can be seen that the explosion speed of the wolves of Koite Stark is even more ridiculous than that of metal nitrogen. The explosion speed refers to the energy release speed of the explosion. The shock wave generated by the supersonic detonation can even cause a group of explosives to explode. His face couldn't bear it, and Renekton, who was at the center of the explosion, roared. That hurt. It's interesting, but I don't know how powerful it is. Lucifer was able to observe the explosion of the wolves, but strangely the range was not as large as a nuclear bomb, and its power was almost as powerful as a nuclear bomb. Naturally, Renekton would not give up so easily. Even if he was blown up by a pack of wolves, the tough-headed boy would never give up. What's more, he also has a big move. Penetrate him, kamikaze. Renekton's whole body was whistling with wind, and then it was wrapped around the crocodile tail slash. He held the crocodile tail slash in his right hand with his left hand and aimed it at Koite Stark. Then there was a flash of green light, and the crocodile tail slash broke away from Renekton's hand, whistling away, and flew towards Koite Stark at a terrifying speed that exceeded the speed of sound. The mock ring sonic boom cloud behind him spread and spread. Quite Stark felt the power of this attack, but he was not in a hurry. If it was supersonic, he could still dodge it. Ring! In an instant, Quite Stark disappeared, and Renekton's ultimate move missed, but it also destroyed an entire piece of land. Then Renekton's hand flashed with light, and the crocodile tail slash returned to his right hand. He didn't expect Quite Stark to be able to dodge his kamikaze crocodile tail slash. This attack could shoot the heavy crocodile tail slash at supersonic speed like a cannonball, and the destructive power and power were naturally very strong. Sound turn? Rikton thought of this possibility, and then there was a click behind him, and he dodged a flash with his head tilted. Good reaction speed. Quite Stark teased, although it would not matter if he didn't dodge and got hit. Rikton turned around and slashed, and the huge wind blade passed through Quite Stark. Another sound turn. Rikton was a little annoyed. Chapter 76, Vastod Gathers. Rikton forced Quite Stark to return to the sword, and then it became a scene where Renekton was suppressed by Quite Stark. Not long after, Renekton was seriously injured and unconscious, and the battle came to an end. The result afterwards was that Renekton and Quite Stark were punished by Lucifer to rebuild the Palace of the Night. Lucifer wanted to change his style, and Renekton could not accept it. He felt that other punishments were fine, but this reconstruction was not. Quite Stark did not say anything, and simply accepted the punishment, even though the one who caused the trouble was actually Renekton. Seeing that Quite Stark obeyed the order so quickly, Renekton had to choose to rebuild the Palace of the Night with a curse. Like a rebellious teenager, Lucifer shook his head, feeling as if he saw Chris with the hairstyle of Nikaido Benimaru, but only in appearance. His personality was not like that, full of wild and unrestrained character like the wind, and did not want to be constrained. Lucifer, I feel like I've become much stronger. Esdeath sat on Lucifer's lap. How could she think she was strong just because she made a little progress? How dare she challenge him? Lucifer looked unkind and decided to teach Esdeath a lesson, to let her know how ridiculous and insignificant her progress was. 3,010,000 words. There is a saying, 2 young swallows fly and the orioles sing, and hundreds of flowers shine in the boudoir. The clouds and rain of Wushan and Liuachuan are the gods, and the pearl loops and fragrant wastes are stable and fit. However, after the fierce battle, Esdeath was still defeated. It was not much better than before. In the following days, after the collapse of the Kion Palace many times, it was barely rebuilt. Then Lucifer's men found Ulquara Cipher, Tia Hribble, and Nelil du Odasuvink. But the strongest Arankar in the original plot could not be found, and Ji Liu was not found either, and No Wu and others seemed to be missing. Lucifer wondered if he had accidentally merged into the Haujioku. After all, the Haujioku that was created by the fusion absorbed the souls of hundreds of Echuka's level hollows. Maybe that was the case. Of course, if they merged, then they merged. Anyway, Lucifer didn't like some of the 10 Espada Arankars. Tia Hribble didn't expect to see Lucifer again. He had become the king of Hueco Mundo. The original king of Hueco Mundo, Bylergan, was said to have been killed by Lucifer because he refused to submit. Lucifer nodded to Tia Hribble, and then used the Haujioku to make them all Arankars. Nelil du Odasuvink and Ulquara Cipher had no objection to submitting to Lucifer. It would be better to say that Ulquara Cipher was similar to Quite Stark. They were both people who longed for companions, and they were also self-made Vastod Arankars. Nelil du Odasuvink is different from them. She surrendered because of the power of Lucifer and the power of the Hueco Mundo. There is no concept of time in Hueco Mundo. It was unknown how long it took Saruman and Genos to produce a little bit of results. They think that the great hollows at the level of Echukas actually have the potential to evolve into great hollows at the level of Vastod, but they just lack a strong enough soul so they can be supplemented. This method sounds very similar to Aizen Sasuke's artificial Vastod Hollow White. Hollow White is the product of Aizen's hollowization experiment. He is a hollow transformed from the soul of a dead god of death. He has great power and is at the level of Vastod. He fought with Kurosaki Isshin decades ago and suppressed Isshin. The reason is that Kurosaki Isshin was injured by Aizen from behind and could not use Bankai. But he was defeated by Kurosaki Masaki, who rushed to him later. Before dying, he chose to self-destruct and invaded Masaki's body with his power. Afterwards, Kurosaki Masaki's body came out of the hollow cave. With the help of Urahara Kisuke, Masaki's body recovered. Actually, the power of Hollow White still remained and gave birth to Kurosaki Ikigo. With Kurosaki Isshin, Ikigo was born with the power of Quincy, Shinigami, and Hollow White. Hollow White is not Shiro Ikigo, and is called the weakest Vastod in history, which shows that Aizen Sasuke's experiment failed. However, Saruman and Genos also heard about this case from Lucifer before, so they thought that maybe they could combine Hollows and Shinigami to transform Hollows with the potential to evolve into Vastod Great Hollows. It is also very simple to capture Shinigami. For Hollows, they can sneak into Soul Society and the real world. I don't know what happened in Soul Society. Recently, many Shinigami have disappeared, including the Shinigami who disappeared during Aizen Sasuke's Hollowization experiment, and the Shinigami who were captured by Saruman and others for experiments. It suddenly made a big fuss, alarming the entire Soul Society. If it was just ordinary Gyukin that were missing, it would be fine, but this was a Shinigami. Shinigami can be said to be 1 in 100 Gyukin, and they belong to the elite troops of Soul Society, just like modern armies, regular troops. If a few of them are missing, they will be investigated, let alone hundreds of missing. There are less than 10,000 Shinigami in Soul Society. Aizen Sasuke has no idea what's going on. Although his hollowification experiment was conducted on Shinigami, there were no such rampant attacks. Isn't it because he thinks he is not exposed fast enough? Now that Soul Society is blocked, Yamamoto Gennusai Shichiguni personally ordered a strict investigation. Aizen Sasuke is very afraid of Yamamoto Gennusai Shichiguni. He doesn't have the capital to compete with Yamamoto Gennusai Shichiguni yet, so he can only execute his plan in advance. So the Masked Corps rebelled, and Urahara Kisuke and Shifunjuan Yoruichi also defected. The blockade of Soul Society did not affect the continued disappearance of the Shinigami. Lucifer actually thought about whether the Hagioku could break the problem that most of the Achukas could not evolve into Vastod, but the Hagioku could not do this. Thinking of the original plot, Aizen Sasuke had the Hagioku for so long. If he could do it, he would definitely do it. It is impossible not to do it. In the early stage, Aizen Sasuke still lacked combat power. But this does not conform to what Aizen Sasuke said, that the Hagioku can realize what the mind wants, unless it is a complete Hagioku that can do such a thing. Thinking of this, Lucifer wanted to get the Hagioku of Aizen Sasuke or Urahara Kisuke more and more, but Aizen Sasuke's Hagioku would probably carry it with him, so it is impossible to get it. Lucifer is not unable to kill Aizen Sasuke, but he is just worried that Aizen Sasuke will hide the Hagioku. As for Urahara Kisuke, he knew that the Hagioku would be hidden in Rukia Kuchiki's body, so he could just go and take it when the time comes. Chapter 77 Soul Experiment. In the original plot, Aizen Sasuke used the semi-awakened Hagioku to create the Arankar, the 10 Espadas and many subordinates. After completely fusing the 2 Hagioku to create the complete Hagioku, he used his own power to successfully subdue the Hagioku, making the Hagioku recognize Aizen as his master, and used the fully awakened Hagioku to create Wonderwise Prince of Fire extinguishing, severely injuring Yamamoto Gennusai Shichiguni. According to Aizen Sasuke, Urahara Kisuke thought that the Hagioku he created was a substance that could break the boundary between the god of death and the hollow, but in fact, it was not. He just hoped that the Hagioku could break the boundary between the god of death and the hollow. So the Hagioku would break the boundary between the god of death and the hollow according to Kisuke's thoughts. The true power of the Hagioku is to develop what people want in their hearts according to what they want in their hearts, and thus materialize it, but the condition is that they need to have the strength to realize this wish. Strength is also equal to potential. After Lucifer figured this out, he knew why most of the Echuca's hollows could not be evolved into Vastod hollows by the Hagioku. They don't have the potential. But if Lucifer wants to force them to mature, it's fine, as long as he pays the price himself. Lucifer tried it, and the effect is not good. The Vastod that was born is much weaker than Renekton and the others. Of course, before Saruman and Genos have studied the results, this is better than nothing. Then there are surprises. A real Vastod appeared. Lucifer took the trouble to gather the hollows, including Echuca's and Killian, and planned to use the collapsed jade to test who has potential. If it was Aizen Sasuke, he would definitely not do this. It's too cumbersome and too out of his league. Only a guy like Lucifer who cares about every bit of experience would be willing to use the collapsed jade to do this kind of thing so tediously and persistently. Then his power was so strong that the collapsed jade had to yield. So that's the current situation. After a real Vastod Great Hollow appeared, Lucifer asked all the Arankars to quickly bring back all the hollows. He knew very well that ordinary hollows might be more likely. When the time came, he would choose a hollow with the potential to become a Vastod Great Hollow, and then feed it with other hollows without qualifications and potential, and directly feed it into Vastod Great Hollows. In this way, Lucifer would have a rich harvest in the future, and might be able to get hundreds of Vastod Arankar experience points. The premise is that he doesn't mind the trouble and tediousness, and goes to detect them one by one. The people of the Hueco Palace feel that the king of Hueco Mundo has a problem recently, and they want to capture all the hollows, not letting any of them go. Damn, Hueco Mundo is so big, who knows how many hollows there are? And they have to order these hollows not to devour each other, otherwise they will be killed, which will increase the degree of chaos. Fortunately, there is a convenient thing like spiritual pressure, which can be directly suppressed, making them unable to move, and they can only obey obediently. No one had ever thought that there would be such a situation in Hueco Mundo where hollows were kept in captivity. After most of the waste hollows were detected, Lucifer arranged to throw them into the underground space as reserve food. They were placed in the underground space to prevent them from preying on new hollows. At the same time, all the hollows in the world had to be captured without missing a single one. This way, Lucifer got exactly 10 Vastod hollows. After Lucifer gave them Arankars, he completed the lineup of the 10 Espada Arankars. Esdeath's identity was special and was not counted among the 10 Espada Arankars. This was just Lucifer selecting 1% of the hollows in Hueco Mundo to complete the 10 Vastod Arankars. These Vastod Arankars had their own thoughts, but they were still obedient to Lucifer, the king of Hueco Mundo, because Lucifer was really strong and beat them up one by one. However, they didn't know that Lucifer was just raising pigs for them. The pigs could be slaughtered directly after they were fattened. Speaking of which, I don't know if the souls of other worlds can be made into virtual Lucifer thought for a moment. If possible, maybe he could try to bring all the orcs, pirates, etc. in the Lord of the Rings world to the Hueco Mundo to kill them and turn them into virtual beings. There are also so many terrorists and drug dealers in the Marvel world. These people deserve to die. Lucifer can even buy death row prisoners from the private prisons in America and the world in the Marvel world. This is not a strange thing. Many human experiments are carried out on death row prisoners. There are so many private prisons. In addition to wanting to get the benefits of the prisoners living in them, some are for the purpose of selling death row prisoners. Osborne Industries is the main customer in this regard. However, due to funding problems, it has given up buying death row prisoners and instead captured street homeless people. Lucifer went to the world of the Lord of the Rings when the plot reached the war. Lucifer had no intention of participating and went directly to Mordor and kidnapped a lot of orcs. Sauron didn't even know what happened, and a lot of his men disappeared. Lucifer brought these orcs back to Hueco Mundo and asked people to conduct experiments. He was worried that the souls of the orcs might not meet the standards. Saruman was an expert in this area. He did not expect Lucifer to bring the specialties from his hometown. He was very surprised. However, when he conducted the experiment, it was like a fellow villager meeting a fellow villager, and he shot him in the back. Hundreds of orcs were killed by Saruman. Their souls had just been transformed into a whole, and then their chains were roughly torn off. Sure enough, souls from other worlds will also become hollows when they come here. Is this a rule unique to the world of the god of death? Lucifer seemed to be thinking about something, and at the same time, he was curious about whether the strength of the soul was related to the strength of the body. If so, wouldn't it be wonderful if he could capture the monsters from the One Punch Man world? Lucifer detected these hundreds of orcs who became hollows, and the result was that none of them had the potential to become the Great Hollow of Vastod. But it doesn't matter, they have confirmed Lucifer's guess. However, when Lucifer was about to go back to the world of the Lord of the Rings to catch people, he found that the door was blocked. There was an unknown creature behind the door, but when Lucifer saw it, he was frantically warned in his heart. Not that bad, just some orcs, it can't affect the script, Lucifer complained, and he was probably the first person to get so much wool that the god Vera personally came out to stop him. In the end, he had no choice but to give up and ran back to the Marvel world. The familiar view of the Sahara Desert through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the rolling heat waves did not affect the inside, and Lucifer went to the outdoor area without glass to bask in the sun and arrange his itinerary at the same time. Chapter 078 What if a miracle happens? Zhu Dahai hurriedly took out the car key and opened the door. Lai Yuhuan put all the money into the car and locked the door again, which made her feel relieved. She blamed Yi Wudao. You kid, you have to change your habit of losing things. You can lose such a large amount of money as 10 million. You are so careless. Yi Wudao smiled slightly. Mom, I will pay attention next time. Looking at the neighbors, they were all dumbfounded. 10 million, what a huge fortune. Their life savings are not even 1/10 of it. But they accidentally forgot the money in the restaurant. Now they have to spend 10 million to buy a car. The arrogance shown invisibly makes people tremble. Compared with others, the newly bought BMW of 500,000 yuan by Sister Wang's family is so shabby. We Nzuemi.cc Sister Wang and Lai Wai have long been ashamed and wish they could become a nobody. Before the crowd could come to their senses, another beer belly squeezed in. Mr. Yi, so you live here? This beer belly is the boss of Palk Company. Yi Wudao's words made his company go bankrupt. How could he be willing to accept it? He came this time to give Yi Wudao some money to let him let his company go. Yi Wudao glanced at the beer belly. What's the matter? The beer belly smiled flatteringly. Mr. Yi, you accidentally left 10 million in my company yesterday. I came to give you money. Crowd, another accidental loss of 10 million? This people are so annoying. Zhu Dahai's family found this. Is this the son-in-law? This is a mobile ATM. Lai Yuhuan. Zhu Dahai, why are you still standing there? Open the car door quickly. Zhu Dahai opened the car door with trembling hands. Lai Yuhuan, there is no more room in the car. Open the trunk. No more room put in the trunk. This wave of showing off wealth is too much. Zhu Dahai opened the trunk tremblingly. He smiled bitterly in his heart. My silly son-in-law, next time you do this, can you tell me in advance? You know Dad has a heart disease. Thus, the new BMW bought by Sister Wang started, roared, and sped away. They couldn't stay here anymore. They were even considering moving. After dealing with the community affairs, Yi Wudao and Zhu Linger took a taxi to the steel factory. The old car was full of money and couldn't fit the two of them. In the taxi, Zhu Linger suddenly said, Yi Wudao, call my parents. Put the 20 million in the bank. Take out 500,000 or 600,000 to buy a Mercedes. Yi Wudao, why don't you call? Zhu Linger, nonsense. Do you think my parents will listen to me? Yi Wudao thought, that's true. However, I suggest we buy a Rolls-Royce Phantom, which is only 10 million. The quality of Mercedes-Benz cars is not very good. I saw in the news some time ago that new cars leaked oil. Zulinger, we can't afford that kind of luxury car. Let's buy a Mercedes this time. Yi Wudao helplessly. Okay, listen to you. At this time, the radio in the taxi played the bidding advertisement for the Shen family's 10 billion project. Yi Wudao asked, Linger, are you interested in bidding for the Shen family's big project? Zulinger sighed. Shen family will cooperate with our small steel factory for such a big project. Yi Wudao, just give it a try. How can you know if you don't try? Zulinger thought. Anyway, I'm free during this period, so I'll do some bidding copywriting. What if a miracle happens? Poof! The taxi driver couldn't help laughing. These two people are more boastful than me. Chapter 079. Do you have a way to convince Ling and Tash 039 Linhai, Fang's construction company. Uncharacteristically, Fang Zhongxin came to the company early. He is also eyeing the Love in a Fallen City project launched by the Shen family. He wants to urge employees to complete project bidding documents as soon as possible. If this bid is successful, the Fang family will surely make further progress. His little secretary came up, brought him a cup of coffee, and whispered, Mr. Fang, I have investigated clearly what you asked me to investigate. Zulinger is indeed interested in bidding for the Love in the City project and is currently working on the bidding copy. Fang Zhongxin frowned. Of course he doesn't want Zulinger to bid. If the scale of Zulinger's factory expands, how can he force Zulinger to marry him? Theoretically speaking, Zulinger's small steel factory was not qualified to bid at all. But last time Yi Wudao brought in an order of 100 million from the Shen family, which made Fang Zhongxin suspect that Yi Wudao had special channels. He also had to pay attention to it. We have to find a way to stop Zulinger from bidding. He frowned and thought hard. Soon, his eyes lit up and he thought of a feasible strategy. He hurriedly said to his secretary, Go, invite those two old guys Zhu Zhongguo and Zhu Dashin, and tell them that I have something important to do with them. The secretary nodded hurriedly and obeyed. Not long after, Zhu Zhongguo and Zhu Dashin were invited to the Fang family. Zhu Zhongguo was worried. Da Shan, what do you think Fang Zhongxin wants to do when he comes to us? Zhu Dashin sighed. Hey, it must be because of Zulinger again. Last time Yi Wudao faked his death and we held his funeral, Fang Zhongxin also went. He explained on the spot that within 10 days, we would send Zulinger to the Fang family, or else we would find a way to deal with the Zhu family. Now, it's the 9th day. Zhu Zhongguo's head was as big as an ox. Hey, this stinky girl really doesn't make people worry. The trash he is looking for is not even worthy of carrying Fang Zhongxin's shoes. Why is she so stubborn? If our Zhu family is involved because of her, I will never be done with her. Zhu Dashin said, It's actually not that difficult to want Linger to marry Fang Zhongxin. We en Zhu Emi.cc Zhu Zhongguo said with great interest. Why, do you have a way to convince Linger? Zhu Dashin said wretchedly, If it doesn't work, let's drug Linger and let her and Fang Zhongxin cook the rice. Zhu Zhongguo rolled his eyes at Zhu Dashin fiercely. Get out. Linger is your niece after all. How could you use such despicable means to deal with her? Zhu Dashin felt guilty for a while and said hurriedly, Dad, I was just talking casually. I didn't really plan to do this. At this moment, Fang Zhongxin walked in. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became tense. Zhu Zhongguo stood up hurriedly and said respectfully, Master Fang, you are here. Please sit down. Please sit down. Fang Zhongxin sat down and cleared the cigarettes between the two of them. Mr. Zhu, I came to you this time to discuss the wedding. How are Linger's preparations going? I'm ready to marry Linger at any time. Zhu Zhongguo's expression was very ugly. Well, Mr. Fang, please be patient. I will definitely try to persuade Linger patiently when I go back. She is just obsessed for a moment. Fang Zhongxin sighed in disappointment. This is not the first time you have told me this. Do you think I will still believe it? Zhu Zhongguo was embarrassed for a while. How about this? I'll show you a clear path. Zhu Zhongguo's eyes suddenly lit up. Young Master Fang, do you have any way to convince Linger? Chapter 080. Is this too risky? Fangzhong Channel. I heard that Linger is planning to bid for the Love in the City project. I want you to hand over Linger's bidding copy and leave the rest to me. Zhu Zhongguo was confused. Young Master Fang, what is your intention? To be honest, with the scale of Linger's steel plant, bidding is not a threat to your organization at all. Besides, even if her bidding copy is changed, will she change her mind? Fang Zhongxin smiled coldly, then whispered into Zhu Zhongguo's ear. Zhu Zhongguo's face turned pale when he heard this. Young Master Fang, isn't it too risky to do this? If you're not careful, even my Zhu family might get involved. Fang Zhongchong, don't worry, I will bear all risks. Zhu Zhongguo pondered for a moment and finally gritted his teeth and said, Okay, I'll listen to Mr. Fang this time. After leaving Fang's house, Zhu Dashan immediately called his daughter Zhu Lily. Lily, I'll give you a task. Go to Linger's factory to do some work. The tender meeting for alluring love will be held tomorrow. Zhu Linger is working overtime to prepare the bidding document. As for Yi Wudao, after salesman, Zhu Linger gave him another job, quality inspector. At this moment, Yi Wudao was wandering around the workshop, supervising the workers' work. Just when Zhu Linger was extremely busy, Zhu Lily walked in. Cousin, I'm busy. When Zhu Linger saw Zhu Lily, an ominous premonition emerged in her heart. Every time Zhu Lily comes, nothing good happens, and this time should be no exception. She said a little warily, Well, I'm a little busy. Lily, why are you here suddenly? Zhu Lily smiled hypocritically. You are my cousin. Isn't it right for me to come and check on you? As she said that, she put the 2 boxes of 6 walnuts she brought on the table. Cousin, drink more of this. It will nourish your brain. Zhu Linger put down her work and said, Thank you. Lily, why did you come to me? Zhu Lily sighed. Cousin, I can't find a job now, so I want to find a job in your steel factory. Zhu Linger frowned. Zhu Lily is coming to work in her own steel factory. How could she set her sights so high on this small steel factory? Her first reaction was that there was something fishy. But I can't remember what Zhu Lily's purpose is. Zhu Lily continued to beg, Cousin, please help me. I can't find a job. I've been idle at home lately. My dad keeps urging me to go on a blind date. I'm almost bored to death. I admit that I was a little mean to you before, and I apologize to you here. Zhu Linger relented. After all, they were a family, so she was really embarrassed to refuse. Besides, now that the steel factory has expanded in scale, it does need talents from all walks of life. Finally, she nodded. Then well, you can be a clerk here first. The standard monthly salary is 4,000 yuan. Now sort out last month's production report and give it to me. Zhu Lily nodded excitedly, no problem. After the explanation, Zhu Linger was busy writing the bidding document again. I was busy until 8 o'clock in the evening when the bidding document was finally completed. Zhu Linger stretched herself and prepared to send the bidding document to the Shen family. However, Zhu Lily suddenly came up to her and said, Cousin, why are you going? Zhu Linger confessed, Send the bidding document to the Shen family. Zhu Lily said hurriedly and enthusiastically, Cousin, let me send it off. Anyway, I happened to be passing by the Shen family. Zhu Linger hesitated a little. This bidding document was very important and confidential, and she was really worried about handing it over to Zhu Lily. Alright legends, that's it for today. If you're ready for the next chapter, smash that like button and flood the comments right now. Remember, we've got 3 days to prove this story needs to continue. Subscribe so you don't miss the drop, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.